housekeeping. There's no expected fire alarm, but should this happen, please follow the Democratic Services colleagues and they will lead the way out to the car park at the rear of the building. Okay, I think that covers all the housekeeping for the moment. I just want to say I'm very grateful and for being offered the opportunity to chair this very important committee, and I'm very grateful to see you all here today. We have a lot of work in front of us, and I'm sure we'll discharge it to the best of our ability. But it's great now we have a good debate. So moving on then to apologies for absence. Agenda item 1. Jamie, please.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, committee. We have received apologies from Councillor Rob Reid and from Councillor Susanna Hart, for whom Councillor Hendry is substituting.
Okay, we now have some minutes from various committees. So we have the Scrutiny Committee's Climate and Place and Communities that were held on the 23rd and the 30th of April 2026. Now, I wasn't at the Climate and Place Committee, so can I have let's deal with that one first. Councillor Mansell.
Yes, I've got a point to raise, please. So on page 9, 35, at the previous meeting, as the minutes show, I did highlight that there have been some items that hadn't been included in the outcome tracker. So that's recorded in the minutes, but they're still not in the outcome tracker. So just drawing attention to that, please, as I guess matter arising. But happy to propose otherwise if that's needed.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, well, we'll be going through outcome tracker and programme in a few minutes. Are there any other members of the previous committee who are happy to second that? Oh, yes, thank you, Andy Dingwall. Right, on the assumption we've had a proposer and a seconder for those minutes, are we all happy to approve them? Okay, thank you very much. Right, the communities minutes of the 30th of April. I've been through them. I'm quite happy that they're a true record. I'm more than happy to propose that we accept them from the chair. Councillor Andy Kendall is happy to second. Without any further comments, can I take them as approved? Thank you. Yep, everybody happy? Good. Thank you very much. Right. Agenda item 3. Are there any declarations of interest in respect of today's agenda other than the normal ones that we all have? No. Okay. And right, we have public question time. Agenda item 4. We have a question from Miss Susanna Clements. Ms. Clements, would you like to come and? I think if you press the right-hand button, light comes on, and there we go.
Yeah, I'm Susanna Clements, and I'm.
Sorry, would you mind sitting so you can be a bit closer to the mic?
I'm Susanna Clements, and I'm representing Glastonbury Trainlink Trust. We're asking the Scrutiny Committee to examine the Transport Committee's decision to reject Glastonbury Trainlink's proposal, because we would bring a lot of monetary and voluntary support to a bus service that would link Glastonbury to Castle Carey Station. And instead, the Transport Committee have decided to promote a different bus route parallel to the existing 667. Glastonbury Trainlink Trust have accumulated and invested a lot of resources already, both monetary and with professional standard research and marketing work, towards a route that Glastonbury, Pilton and other communities have actually asked for. A bus that serves the communities, workplaces and leisure destinations along the route Glastonbury, Pilton, Cannersgrave, Prestley, Bath and West Showground, Castle Carey Station and going on through Ansford to Castle Carey Town. And what we're bringing to the table, this is what we're asking, just for it to be considered, what we've brought to the table. We just don't want it put aside because we think it's really valuable and could really help. So we've trained ourselves by consulting organisers of comparable projects that are successful to bus projects to get advice. We've really engaged with the community. They're really closely working with us and constantly talking to us about what they want. And we did ask people whether they would like a route via Kent and Mandeville, and actually it was really rejected. So we had to take that on board, and we focused all our resources on the route that I talked about. We've raised funds and pledges of £29,150 to date, but those are dependent on this particular route because they come a lot from people along that route, and that's a proposal we put before the grant givers. We've given, as I said, skilled voluntary work by professionals in their field who volunteered to the value of at least twice that amount. We've been promised considerable advertising and promotion by many businesses, including GWR, Glastonbury Festival, Bath and West Showground, and hospitality businesses along there. We've had clear guidance that if Somerset Council were to give wholehearted support to this, there would be much more grants available. We were sort of stymied by not having the clear support of Somerset Council. And we've responsibly nurtured and grown community support and confidence, because these things, you can't just go from a standing start with a bus route. You've got to have people ready to get it. And we've really grown that in advance. And we've had lots of enthusiastic offers from volunteers who would like to help us monitor the data, because it's difficult to collect data on buses. So we will need volunteers and to further support it. Lots of people said anything I could do to help. So we contend that much greater value for money can be made by including the Glastonbury train links proposal. We don't deny that Somerton needs a train link. We really don't deny that, but we don't want to be in competition. It seems ridiculous. So it's a well-developed project. We've been at it for years. We'd like Somerset to help. We want to give these resources to Somerset to make it work, because we don't think that it's going to work just by going it alone on a new initiative. We ask you to examine the basis for the decision, the criteria applied to calculate value for money, and the evidence of any underpinning market research for the proposal, the other proposal, and whether a better outcome could be achieved by including the Glastonbury train link proposal, and so we can bring everything we've got and bolt it together with Somerset. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Now I have Mike O'Dowd-Jones, who's the Service Director for Infrastructure and Transport, who will respond. But the portfolio holder, Richard Wilkins, is here. I don't know, Richard, do you want to say anything in this, or are you happy for Mike to take it? Okay, Mike, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the question and for taking the time to attend the committee. It's appreciated. So we recognise the desire for a transport link from Glastonbury to Castle Carey railway station, and that's why we are providing this new service. It's important to stress that we need to provide best value with the available funding we have, and therefore it's not possible to cover all the requested calling points. We've looked really closely at the train link proposals. They've been given a great deal of consideration. Our primary concern is that the proposed route has significant limitations in terms of potential users. To ensure the trial service has the best chance of success, and to achieve this, we believe the service needs to operate via street to attract visitors to Clark's Village and Glastonbury, and to widen the catchment area by providing a peak commuter journey to and from the Langport and Somerton area to Castle Carey railway station using our Somerton digital Slinky bus services. In addition to this, during the day, local residents in the Langport and Somerton area will also be able to book journeys on the digital Slinky service to connect with this new bus service at Kent and Mandeville for onward travel to and from Castle Carey railway station. So we've listened to the request and we've delivered what we believe is the best possible solution, whilst balancing the need to attract as many passengers as possible by widening the catchment area and gaining support from both Clark's Village and GWR to help us promote the service. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. So what you're saying is that we have limited resources, and therefore we have to prioritise in that basis on the best way that we can.
Correct, yeah, and it's largely about the catchment area and the demand for the service.
All right. Well, we'll perhaps have a chat about this during our forward programme in a moment, but Henry Hobhouse would like to say a word about this as well.
I want to thank the Glastonbury people on behalf of the Castle Carey division, because the station is in my division. Over the last 5 years, the amount of people using the station has risen to 370,000 people a year. And sorry to say it, but it drives me nuts every time in the paper they say Castle Carey Railway Station, home of the Pilton Pot Festival, because that is less than 10% of our total usage. We are getting a third car park. It is in negotiation at the moment, and hopefully our numbers will go on increasing. 5 years ago, we didn't have a permanent station person. We now have two. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, as I just said, thank you very much for the question. We will look at this. What I need to know is if it's a decision made by another committee, to what extent we're in a position to scrutinise that, and I would hope we are. But we'll have to programme it in, and we do have a considerable programme in front of us, but we'll have a chat about it in a moment, if that's okay. Right, members, thank you. We'll move on to agenda item 5, which is the Climate and Place work programme. And you will find in your pack that we have the forward combined work programme on page 29, which is followed up by the outcome tracker for the Climate and Place. So what I'm proposing to do is to briefly run through the forward work programme, then have a look at the outcome tracker and see what we can do to stick the two together if we need to. So, but please chip in, and if you don't catch my eye, throw something at me. Right, that's not a literal request. 4th of June, today we're looking at the rights of way review, and we're looking at the EV charging cross pavement channels. We were supposed to have a climate strategic partnership review now, and this is on a high red. I'm not quite sure why that's been delayed. Can somebody enlighten me as to where we should be with that one, please? No, no. Okay, all right. Well, we'll if we could mark that down to pick up on our next agenda setting meeting, because clearly it's dependent on a WSP report, which I presume is the reason for the delay. So we'll have to chase up on that. Next month. Sorry, are you sure? Yes.
Sorry, I have an email update from Paul Hickson regarding the climate and strategic partnership review. This is ongoing work, so service not in a position to bring report to this month's meeting. An information note on findings of externally commissioned study could be provided for July, but would need to be later for enough work to be progressed for substantive business item. Then for the green financing roadmap, can potentially provide a presentation from consultants supporting work for July meeting. And the flood risk management strategy would need to be an item for an autumn meeting of the committee for work to be sufficiently progressed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Right, so let's just run through that again. So the climate and strategic partnership we should be able to discuss next month. The flood risk you said would be in the autumn. And the green financing roadmap will be okay for next month. Yeah. Okay, right. So we've got water quality task and finish group. And now this is member-led scrutiny. Again, I'm not cited on this one. Who's been leading on the group? Is it you, Henry?
This has been sat for about 15 months, waiting to be activated. The situation has fundamentally changed because on the 19th of December, the government changed the rules of nutrient neutrality completely. They've just produced a white paper, and I would like to bring up the subject in the future plans, because what they have produced in the white paper is not going to do Somerset any good at all.
Okay, so what you're saying is that the task and finish group is on hold at the moment, but you'd like to, once we're a little bit clearer on where the government stands and where government advice is, that we need to crack on with it. Is that right?
That's 100% correct, and we are in the same position we were in 2020 when the letter hit the councils, that we have absolutely no data to support anything that has happened over the last 6 years.
Okay, planning enforcement. This is down for September. Now, again, I'm not cited on this. Andy?
Just before we move on, Chair, you said there's a task and finish group for this item. Do you have the names of who's on that group, please? Because we've got a new committee now.
No, I don't actually. That's a very good point. So if the thing hasn't really kicked off yet, are there any members? You're presumably on it, Henry?
I'm on it. Aisha has the other name. Susan Hart is definitely on it. And we will probably need some, I can't remember whether you on it, David, or not. No.
I think we've refreshed the membership.
Okay, well,
Right.
that's something else.
Jamie's saying that we need to refresh the membership.
I think it would be pertinent to do that, bearing in mind we've now got a new committee. Yeah.
There's a little bit of work to do around that. Thank you, Andy, for clearing that up. Right, where were we? Planning enforcement. This is set down for September. I know planning enforcement, I suspect, is a vexed issue for all members. So we'll see what we can do about bringing something forward on that one. In October, oh, sorry, Andy, yes. Well, there's a lesson for us all. If we could all answer our own questions, we could be out of here very quickly. Thank you. Okay, this is one from my former committee. This is the Octagon Theatre update. As you know, this is a major initiative for this particular council, and I, as chair, was very keen to make sure that member scrutiny was on it all the time, and we followed the various stages. From memory, I think by October we should have presented the business plan to the government and, fingers crossed, have it signed off, which would give us the green light to go ahead. The issue, as always, with these kind of things is, have we got enough money to do what we want to do? And that's something we need to, that's been a recurring question all the way through, which we'll have to look again in October. Right, planning recruitment. Now, I suspect this ought to be bundled in with planning enforcement if we can, because I think, again, we all know that there have been recruitment issues across the planning service throughout the council. Next one is the M5 incident. Oh, sorry, to Fran and then Andy.
Thank you. If you're going to try and put planning enforcement and planning recruitment together, can they be put on the same month? And will that leave a gap that perhaps we could talk about the train station or the train route if there is a gap in the agenda, or is that too premature?
No, I think that's probably fine. I mean, I need to find out a little bit more about the trains and what's going on. As I said, it's been through one committee, a decision has been reached, and what I need to understand is to the extent that this committee and have a look at it and perhaps influence that decision. And I don't know. I'll need to talk to Democratic Services colleagues about that. I don't know that at the moment. Andy Dingwall.
Thank you, Chair. Mine was on the M5 management. It will be good prior to November to get an update on how the escalation has landed. What's the level of engagement between National Highways and us here? Because it's an ongoing. I think that's the tactful way to put it, Chair.
Am I right in thinking that Councillor Revens, the leader, is leading on this? I think I've picked up somewhere that. Oh, Richard Wilkins. Oh, and Micah Down. I'll come to Richard Wilkins, if I may, Alan, and then come back to Michael Dowd-Jones.
Yes, you are correct. This has been escalated. I had many conversations with National Highways and the police in regard to this. The difficulty has been to get them together to come to this scrutiny, but my understanding is that from National Highways' point of view, they do attend scrutiny committees in other areas, but it will be nailing. It's interesting that we've struggled to nail down both the police and National Highways in Somerset. I can only presume it's a thorny issue.
I mean, I think
to paraphrase, paraphrase Alan.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we are struggling to schedule them both on the same day, then at some point we're going to have to bite the bullet and deal with them individually and tie it up if we can. Would that be a good idea? Or otherwise, we could be.
I think that was part of the issue, was that they were less inclined to not attend together.
Okay, well, we'll bear that one in mind. Mike, did you want to say something?
Yeah, just to say, I mean, National Highways have continually offered to come, and I have said to them to date, it would be better to come at the same time as the police, because it is the issues are about the collaborative response, and it's a joined up response to the issue, so it's quite difficult to treat it separately. However, I understand if we have to have that separately, we can. So the current action is with Councillor Evans' office is they're in dialogue with the Police and Crime Commissioner about securing a date, essentially. So I think the commitment is there to come. It's just finding the date. Thank you.
Can I just clarify that the issue is about the length of time of the closure? It's not the general safety of the road.
I would say it's both of those things. You know, we've experienced. I think we had a week when it was closed pretty much every day of that. You know, we had about a 10-day period where we had 7 closures. So there's clearly a lot of issues at play, and it's for your committee to drill down into that. I feel, and not for me to. Well, I mean, I have my own views, but you know, if we can bring them to this committee, I think this is something that you can drill down on and make some really good progress.
Okay, well, Mike O'Dowd-Jones and I are both veterans of the swarms process. Do you remember that 25 years ago, which was all about bringing us a second strategic route into the southwest, which, well, it's up there somewhere. Anyway, 25 years ago and all our yesterdays. Andy Dingwall, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I was first.
Oh, I beg your pardon,
Sorry.
Alan.
Sorry.
Yeah, you have to keep me in order, Alan. Please remember that.
No problem. No problem at all. Actually, Councillor Evans stole my thunder. I brought this up a year previous to the time you brought it up because we could see the impact on villages adjacent to M5 when all these bigger vehicles got to travel through, the likes of Bringfield, North Petherton, North Newton, Ling, Borough Bridge, etc., and the damage they were doing to the roads, etc., etc. Only it wasn't an incident every week. It was coming quite often, and people were really fed up. So I brought it up at a full council meeting, and the police did get back to North Petherton Town Council, and we had a meeting at North Petherton with 3 or 4 policemen, and one of the chaps was very helpful, very talkative, talked cheap. He never really had an answer, to be honest, and that chap's no longer with. I tried to follow it up. The chap's no longer, he's retired. So there's no answer to that one. But not only affect the business, the money they lose every day, it's the damage to the structure of the roads. That was another important, and Councillor Evans never mentioned that one, because that is very important, because some of these vehicles that leave the motorway, they got sat navs and they get to places via villages, never mind what the roads are like, and they cause no end of frustration. And frustration leads to trouble. In fact, I did get in trouble. I blocked the road with a tractor and trailer.
Alan.
And within 8 minutes, 2 patrol cars had turned up to say I was a criminal. I'm doing what I think is right, because I'm stopping them people going down there and meeting a lot of other people coming the other way via the M5 closure. This went on for 6 hours. I held me ground for an hour and a half. Then they threatened to take me away, and I thought it was time to call it a day.
Yeah. Well,
but I made a point.
Okay, thank you, Alan. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, the declaration of interest when we discuss this will be quite interesting, I suspect.
They can lock me up there, like they don't stop me talking.
Richard Wilkins, please.
Can I just assure this committee and Councillor Bradford that those issues very much have been discussed even before your intervention at full council, I'd had these discussions and they were very much part of my discussions with the police and National Highways, and indeed that the lack of a strategic, strategic routes through to the West Country that we have, and the M5 being so pointedly important in that, and how it affects not just Councillor Bradford's division, but in fact there are very few divisions in the entire county of Somerset that aren't affected when there are problems on the M5. It certainly has considerable issues in my division, and I'm a fair distance from the M5, and I know it stretches much further.
Yeah. Well, I endorse that. I mean, in Milverton and with Liscombe, we get a lot of displaced traffic from the M5, and it causes chaos, really. Andy Dingwall, please.
My last point on this topic, I promise. So there's a lot of kind of back and forward on this one as it keeps getting kicked down the road, and there's conflicting messages, I think, about the reasons behind what's driving that. It's either diaries or it's a difficult, thorny situation that they're trying to avoid. I think it will be very helpful for the committee to receive a full kind of breakdown of who the stakeholders are on both sides. So in all three sides, the council, the PCC, and National Highways. A run through of the specific issues that National Highways think they're coming to deal with, and then in advance of the meeting, so that we can make the most of our time with them. I think if we could have a full briefing, a written briefing on the potential options that are in scope of that conversation, to save it being highways turning up here, National Highways turning up here, and us just going back for 45 minutes and not making any actual progress towards a solution. It'd be good to have that in advance of the meeting. I know we're months and months away, but I think it'd be useful to do.
I mean, this is why I wanted to clarify what the issue was. Was it the length of closure? Was it the safety of the road, or sheer capacity? So we'll have to do. Henry, did you want to come in on that before I come to Fran? Oh, right, Fran, then first.
Just quickly, I think it would be interesting to know the reasons for each of these closures. You know, if we could have a timeline of perhaps the previous 2 years or whatever, and say, because there are some very sad situations and reasons behind all of this. And I think it's important that, you know, a road accident is different to somebody threatening to commit suicide, etc. So, you know, I think we need to take this all into consideration for the various reasons of to why. So if that could be part of the information we could gather, that I think would be helpful as well. Thank you.
I mean, I think the long and the short of it is that the road is, and this would be interesting to discover, to what extent the road is operating at its capacity or beyond it. And clearly at times it's beyond, but they have different ways of analysing this. Andy Kendall, did you want a quick point?
It's just a quick one, Chair. I'm listening to what everyone's saying, and I'm looking at this big red box. So if it's such a high priority, why is the date December, and why is nothing being done previous? I'm not trying to have a go at anybody. It's just confusing. When you see red, it's like a risk. What's it called? A register. December, the summer's going to come and go. It's obvious, and as far as I can see, there is more vehicles on the road now, so the problem's going to aspirate even more, and so we'll be starting at square one again in November.
Yeah, I mean, I think it has been said, difficulty getting hold of the key partners, but I think, as Andy's made a very good point about actually understanding, and as Fran has said, understanding what's going on and what the root of the cause for the delays is at different times, because different issues will provoke different responses from the police, which will require different times of closure. And some may be open-ended, some may be repairing the road, whatever it is. I think we need to get a handle around that if we can. Henry, last word on this, please.
I'll be as quick as I can, Mr. Chairman. Firstly, the officers have tried incredibly hard to get both parties to attend meetings in 4 or 5 occasions, and every single time it has been the police who have said they are too busy to attend, and we can only continue that. One of the reasons that I have supported this, and Martin Dimmery did, to come to the committee, is that if you look at the M25 figures, they clear up a problem about twice as quickly as the Avon and Somerset police do on the M5. And the reason is that they prioritise the road moving as opposed to anything else. And one of the questions I have for the police is, why are you not prioritising clearing the road as opposed to anything else? I fully understand the hold up if you've got a death to deal with and the investigations have got to be done. But when you have, for want of a better description, a minor shunt and it takes a full day to clear the road, it ain't good enough.
Now, another next question, nutrient neutrality. This is down for, now because I've been on another committee that hasn't been dealing with it, I've sort of slightly lost sight of the issues around here, apart from the generalities that, so can somebody refresh my memory as to why the committee would be looking at this? Henry, perhaps you can enlighten us?
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, say again.
About the nutrient neutrality, what particular aspect would you like or is the committee going to be looking at?
Right. I'm going to try and keep this as short as possible. I can speak on this subject for about 2 hours, as Steve Ashton knows, but I won't. The nutrient neutrality was brought in 2020. There has never been any data backing up the decision of Natural England in any form or description. There still is no data. They have now decided to change the rules. And they are bringing in a thing called EDPs, Environment Development Plans, to replace the money going direct to the farmers for doing work on their land, which is not enforced or checked on. The EDPs will give us the first management control of what is happening with the pollution on the levels and moors. And at the moment, our nature recovery areas on Mendip and the Polden Hills, and I can't think what the other one's called for the moment, we have a management team in place. We have money coming through this council to make sure it is run to the benefit of the environment. We have none of that on the levels and moors. The discussion, Dave knows all of this, and the discussion that needs to be had is how, I'm going to be as quick as I can, Mr. Chairman, they are going to fund the EDPs. At the moment, they have just decided they want to transfer the funding position on the nutrient neutrality to the EDPs. That, in my opinion, for Somerset building and Somerset development is completely and utterly problematic and needs to be fundamentally looked at. We had a complete meeting on this subject. And the one other thing I want to say, this council is in charge. We have 2 barristers' opinions from the new members of the committee who want those barristers' opinions. I will send them to you, both saying the same thing, both saying that this council can actually tell Natural England what we don't want, and we are backed up by the law.
Okay, all right, thank you, Henry. Right, so it seems there's an awful lot to unpack there. I suspect we're going to have some sort of pre-briefing to work out how we cut into this. But yes, okay, a lot to do there. And I see in January we've got biodiversity net gain. Is biodiversity net gain associated with this, or is it only by sort of
biodiversity net gain? It covers the whole country and there's nobody exempt from it. The EDPs and the nutrient neutrality are only in areas that Natural England think are affected by pollution.
but can a builder claim biodiversity net gain in association with work going on an EDP? Good, okay, thank you. Right. Sorry, Tom. Hello, Tom.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was going to wait until the end, but I just wanted to make sure I got it in just beforehand. I'm just going through the actual whole work programme until the 15th of April. And I know that Susanna's not here, but I know she'll be disappointed not to see about the traveller stuff. And also, especially what's going on at the moment with how Somerset Council's worked with our leisure providers to provide some leisure provision to the east. Yeah, it is the east. It's next to us, amend it. Because they normally come and give us a report on their leisure providers, but there's nothing on here about that. But I don't know if that's to be added in?
Yeah, I
I'm
think
not
we
sure.
we'll come on to the communities programme in a minute. There
Okay,
are
yeah, that's
two
fine.
things hanging over from
Yeah,
there, which
that's
we'll
fine.
deal with.
Sorry.
But as I said at the outset, I mean, we've got a huge work programme here, and we need to make sure it's balanced properly. But thank you for that. Right, nutrient neutrality. Levi, that's an electric vehicle annual update. The green, Mike, can you?
Yes, I think that can certainly be done at that point if there's a slot on the agenda. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Biodiversity net gain. Again, this tied in with planning, but I do know government policy is shifting on this, and I haven't really caught up with it yet. What's the rivers redistribution about? Does this come to the IDB, Alan? Is this because sorry, Mike, I think this is probably because the Environment Agency has withdrawn funding for clearing certain rivers, and so the IDB is picking up some of it, but only has limited resources. And I think there is a potential for a problem to emerge here, because I think we're all well aware that making sure the watercourses are properly maintained is a rather important part of certainly low-lying areas of Somerset. And we've had various discussions in the IDB about the EA's withdrawal of funding. So we'll have to have a look at that. I mean, I don't think we need to steal the IDB's thunder, but we need to be working in partnership with them. So we'll keep an eye on that one.
Mr. Chairman, could I?
Yes, Henry.
I just want to remind members of this committee that 4 of my parishes have got money out of the Somerset Rivers Authority to enable them to do the work that the EA have stopped doing in their villages, with, in my case, the River Cam, the River Carey and the River Brew.
Yeah, I mean, I think, yes, we are fortunate in a way that we have the SRA here. My fear is that it's used as a sort of backstop for someone else to not do what they were doing before, which doesn't help anybody really. Okay. Lead member reports, well, they will come as and when, and the forward planning. So we just move on very quickly through the Scrutiny Committee Climate Place Outcome Tracker. Highways Service, the Task and Finish Group, decision required as to progress the Task and Finish Group or formally removed from the programme. This was all about how the Highway Service was operating, is that right?
Yeah, so I think this was a request a long time ago now for a Task and Finish group, and at the time it wasn't something we could facilitate due to capacity, but we're in a much better position, and there's a lot of highway improvement work going on around how we deal with our customer communications and those sorts of things. So we're very able to come along and have an update and explain to people what we're doing. I don't think a Task and Finish group is needed. I think it's probably just explaining what we're doing and then just getting some feedback from members on that. But we can do it any time. It's just finding a slot on the agenda.
Okay, Chair. Isha, did you have something to add?
In terms of the fact that there's both of the outcome trackers and stuff, I do want to just explain that the reason I made that decision to publish everything is because since it's the first meeting, I wanted there to be a paper trail in case anyone wanted to go through and look at previous papers. So I do want to let everyone know that I am working behind the scenes. I've got some responses from officers as well, but obviously they came after the agenda was already published. So they're not reflected on this outcome tracker, but we would have them in the next update, or I can provide sort of like I can circulate it with the committee members as and when needed.
Okay, I mean, well, I've always worked out looking at all this. I think you and I and Jamie are just going to have to sit down and get our heads around all these services and see what we can slot in as best we can. And we'll try and do that early next week if we can. Okay, thank you, Mark. Yes, Alan.
Chairman, thank you. Some of the improvements the highways have done and some of the road servicing is tremendous. I think it is. Credit where it's due, because you get so much hassle one thing or another going on regarding highways, and a lot of it, what it's done is terrific service. I don't know if I'm using different tarmac or what I'm using, but some of the services now are way above stuff we've used before. That was almost like rumble strips, half of that was. So when you get off these good places to stand here and there. It just makes you think that why aren't they doing the whole lot? Because there's so many patches. Now, what's this musical in London? Joshua, was it, when he had a coat of many colours? Well, the roads are becoming like that. Patch, 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 patch.
Yeah, I think we'll cover that when we come to discuss it, but I
And I
mean,
think a bit of common sense sometimes will come into doing the whole area rather than.
yeah, I don't disagree with you, Alan. I mean, this is a constant
It's a very
question.
difficult issue, it really is. But
Okay.
credit where it's due. What's
Yeah,
been
thank you.
done is done tremendously well, I think, yeah.
Dave Mansell, please.
Yeah, if I may, could I just a quick point on the forward plan and potential other items?
Well, can we just wrap that up at the end? Because
Wrap
I've
that
got
up
one
at the
or
end?
two. Yeah, because Tom's mentioned it. I'll just run through.
Okay.
Yeah. And Cara wants to add something as well, so we'll try and tidy those up in about 5 minutes when we've been through the outcome tracker.
Mr. Chairman, I think the coat of many colours was Godswell, but I'm willing to stand corrected.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, can we discuss this in the break? Yeah. Right, so moving through the tracker, we got the transport right-of-way review is with us today. M5 Infrastructure Management, we talked that through. Levi Fund is on the agenda on the forward plan. As is nutrient neutrality. Sunday parking charges is parking still within this committee?
It will be. I think this was, I guess, superseded, I think, by the work that we've now commissioned to do the parking review, which is underway. So I think probably we will bring an outcome from that. We could bring an outcome from the parking review back at an appropriate time if that was something you wanted to look at, I think. But it's on a fairly tight timeline for decision making this year.
Okay, thank you. Local transport plan, that's green, so we'll hope that's okay. Spotlight review plan. Oh, no. Oh, there I was hoping I could scoot along. Dave Mansell, please.
I'm just wondering whether it should be on the forward plan, possibly. So it was noted for monitoring how it gets delivered. Now, of course, when the right point of that is and whether it's within the next year, but just wondering whether that should be future forward plan. Slightly wondering about the parking charges as well, although clearly there will be local consultation. That's an item some of us do follow very closely. I have noted that it's now on the executive forward plan for September. It had been talked about early summer, so it seems as though that's moving back a little bit. But yeah, there's quite a lot involved in that. Although one of the things I think most important is, the local consultation finally happens.
Well, we'll certainly keep an eye on that one. Spotlight review travel plans, that's to be confirmed. Is there anything to add on that?
So that was Councillor Mansell's request to the previous committee to have a session looking at travel plans, and the scope of that had been worked out. So I think it's just this committee confirming it's something it still wants to look at, is my understanding. Is that right, Councillor Mansell, from your perspective?
I guess so, yes. So the previous committee had decided to do this one, and yes, as indicated, what it would involve was largely identified. I had an idea. It didn't need membership. If I've got it right, it was sort of open to all the committee. So as a spotlight review, so it was intended as a one-off meeting, which would then report back to.
Yeah, okay. Fine. Broadband delivery, the vexed question of that. Do we get regular updates on that, or is that just, it's only when concerns are raised? Dave?
Yeah, I've got a comment on this, which applies to several of them, really. And this was a bit of a problem we had on climate and place, that we made requests and recommendations, and they weren't actioned, or what it wasn't clear what happened to the recommendations. And to be honest, this was a bit of a recurring theme, and which I feel needs a bit of sorting out. It being clear who's responsible for action actioning things, who recommendations are going to, and if they don't happen, who chases? Because we were just getting things left on our outcome track, and we were always asking about them, but then next meeting would come along and they're still there in the same form. And I'm afraid this is one example. There are going to be others. Now, some of it was supplied information, and the officer who presented said this information was available, offered it to us, and yet here we are. We've still not got it. Is anyone chasing it? You know, are we going to get it? So some of it was information, some mapping information of coverage, which we were told was available. And the other bit was we made some suggestions for reporting to government about extending the voucher scheme and a couple of other things there. Now, but perhaps we need to be clear who's actioning. At the time, my recollection is Paul Hickson said, yes, this can be done and it would happen, but we've not been reported back that it has.
We'll try and chase that one up. Oh, and are you?
I got an update on that. Keeping in mind, this update did come to me just earlier this week. So for the CDS to supply detailed maps data for sub 30 Mbps premises by parish, the officers have said this is the update for the progress on these actions. We're waiting for the BD UK open market review data from Jan 2026 before producing mapping data, as that is the most accurate and up to date. There is usually around a 5-month period where BD UK will undertake their quality control review before releasing the data. So receipt of this data is imminent. Once the Jan 26 data is received, there will be a task to update the CDS data portal. With this updated info, this will usually take a few weeks. Once this is complete, we will be able to produce mapping data showing premises that are super fast. The expectation is that we will be in a position to provide the maps by mid-July. Be able to produce a briefing note which shows the maps at parish level and accompanying narrative. To confirm, it is not possible to provide access to members to the CDS portal. This is because much of the detailed information within the portal is commercially sensitive and CDS is covered by non-disclosure agreements. For the other point about lobbying priorities identified, a draft letter is being prepared for Councillor Rigby to send to Minister to address these 3 points.
Okay, thank you. Can you circulate that to the committee, please? Sorry, section 40 reports, I don't know what they are, but we'll have to examine. Water quality task and finish, we've talked about. Local transport delivery plan. Mike?
So there's a request on this one to have this considered at the September committee if possible, because we have to submit a new plan to government which sets out how we're going to be spending around £260 million worth of highways and transport funding. So it's obviously quite a big issue. So it would be helpful to come to the September meeting if that's possible. That fits in with the executive timescale for decisions.
Good. Okay, thank you. Section 19 reports. I'm not aware that we've got any Section 19 reports in the works at the moment, but I'm guessing they will come to us as and when they are after an incident, unless you know better, Henry, do you?
I think there is some to come for January. The question I can't answer is how many places had more than 10 houses flooded, which is the position for the. That's I think the correct. But Mike will correct me if I'm wrong.
Okay, well, we'll keep an eye on that and they'll work their way through. I mean, the thing that's always concerned me is these things do take quite a long time to come out, and actually they need to be a bit quicker. So that's something to look at. Lead member report. Well, we'll go through. We'll scrutinise the lead members as and when. Local plan commencement. Now, there's something here. The local plan, I think, and I'm happy to be contradicted, seems to be slipping a little bit. Is that correct? Are you up to speed with the local plan, Mike, or not?
Not in any detail, unfortunately. No, I think we probably need to take that away and just explore where that is, and then come back with the current view on the timetable.
Yeah. Okay, that'd be good.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah. Yes.
We had a presentation on the local plan, either our last meeting or the one before. Which one was it, David? So do I.
All right, so we could,
There have been other meetings that I've attended as well that are progressing the local plan process. So an update from the lead member is probably appropriate, but I'm not sure it's slipping too far behind at the moment.
well, I think we've got an all-member briefing. Is it next week, next Monday? Monday afternoon, which should bring us up to speed. Now, all things being equal, I would expect an all-member briefing to be an adequate forum for discussing this, unless anything obviously pops out of us that we need to scrutinise. So we'll just keep that under review at the moment. Where are we going next? Recycling performance. That seems to be green. Is that still a burning issue, Dave?
Yes, I feel it should be on the forward plan. We had a good report on this, but one thing it highlighted was that more trade waste is entering the domestic waste stream, and that presents various issues, one being cost, another being performance. And that, to me, looked like something quite important that we follow up to find out how it's being addressed. Clearly, they need a bit of time, and the officers were planning to work on this, but I feel it should be on the forward plan, maybe towards the end of our current cycle.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I think that's probably quite sensible. Okay, and if we could make a note of that, please. Ramsar briefing. I don't know what Chris was going to tell you about the Ramsar.
I think that's part of the nutrient neutrality issue.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, that was brought up by a planning application for
This is the North Curry one, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yes,
correct.
yes. I did have a phone call about that.
The interesting thing is that the Ramsar site is not legal.
That was the contention. I have been told otherwise from former colleagues anyway, but anyway, I don't think it's for us to debate. And I see the appeal was dismissed as well. So SRA level and climate plan workshop, solar, these are all just tacked on the end. And the communities, we've got, of course, Andy.
Just after solar policy clarification, you moved on quick, but the next box is there. It says everything in green is completed. So the action's complete and will remove from the tracker next meeting, but that's not strictly true, is it?
No, it isn't. Some of these things are always going to be ongoing. What I'm going to do early next week is I'm going to work through all of this and try and get my head around it, frankly, make sense of it all and try and sort it into some sort of order. I will then have a discussion with Democratic Services about how we schedule it all and certainly where the officer cohort is in relation to some of these particular issues, because if there is an understanding that it's green and it's dealt with, and we as a committee think, well, actually, we've just got to keep an eye on it, then we need to sort of make those connections.
Just come back, but
yes,
it does actually say it will be removed from the next tracker. So things we're talking about this morning that are in green, I would expect to be seeing that on the next tracker. But according to this, it's not going to be on the next tracker. It might just be wording.
Well, I see what it says, but as I say, I'm going to go through it, and I'll go through on my own and make up my own judgment, and I might talk to Henry as well. But then we'll go through it with Democratic Services, and we'll sort out. Clearly, there are things we can draw a line under and take away completely, which would be really good. But there's so much here that is just ongoing work. It's just normal business, and it's for various reasons, whether it's resources or external matters. Some of these things do pop up and cause problems from time to time, and as we all know, nothing ever runs smoothly. And I think and our job as a committee is to make sure that it's as smooth as it can be, and if it's not smooth, how we understand it, how we sort it out. Okay. Right, moving on to the scrutiny communities, we've got local bus services. Well, we've just had a presentation about the bus and rail link, so I'd like to put that on the agenda for a bit more examination, please. And as I said earlier, I need to understand where the committee that made the decision stands and where we stand in relation to that, and whether the thing is, Mike.
Yeah, just to say, I think there's a wider agenda on local bus services in terms of we are refreshing our bus service improvement plan, we are commissioning some work to look at the applicability of franchising in our area. So there's quite a lot of strategic work that we could bring to the committee to talk about at the appropriate time when there's an evidence base and prior to any decisions being made.
I mean,
That's helpful.
Yeah, is it a sort of single meeting agenda item to look at the whole bus across the piece, or?
What we've tended to do is have a fairly long agenda item at the point at which we're seeking input into plans. So you could spend a sort of hour or so just going over what the plan's saying and seeking input to it, which has tended to work well, but obviously open to suggestions if people wanted a deeper dive into how local bus services operate.
All right, thank you. Housing update. This is my former committee, the Community Scrutiny, had various updates from the Housing Service. There have been quite a lot of legal changes that we need to adapt to, and it's our performance and our AWAB's law is about mould in homes and things like that, and we need to be on top of how we're performing as a housing authority. So we will need to bring some of that back, and the reports have been really good. There's also, I think, as you know, there has been a change to the service, and it's now to the service model, and this has attracted a dispute, I think, with Unison over that, which I think went to the executive yesterday. I need to talk to Chris as to how that is being resolved, and when Chris is back. Yes, Dave.
Yeah, so sorry to mention, but just sort of checking. I had an idea housing was there's now adult social care and housing scrutiny. So has this actually moved? Which scrutiny committee covers it, and perhaps it actually should be passed to another scrutiny committee to follow up.
My understanding, and I'm sure I will be corrected if I'm wrong, was that the responsibility of housing had been slightly divided. So the financial side was going over to adults and children's, adults rather. But I thought we still had responsibility for the housing stock. Jamie, can you enlighten us on that?
I think you're correct, Chair.
Gosh. Oh. Well. Can we minute that, please? Yeah, okay. But yes, I think, I mean, as chair of the former community scrutiny, I used to get confused as to how the changes were taking place because it all seemed to be moving a bit behind the scenes. So I think it's a good question, and I will get some clear guidance on what our responsibilities are in respect of housing and what goes to the adults. Next one is that's just for direction of travel. That's gone. Leisure operators, as Tom said. Now, as we all know, was it Fusion Leisure went to the wall, and we just passed a decision earlier this week to pass it on to a new operator. I only got back from holiday on Monday, so I haven't looked at the decision in detail. But essentially, council has been determined to ensure there was continuity of service from the leisure operators. But again, this is only for a short-term fix, and at some point the whole Mendip area leisure offer will come forward for tender, and I can't remember this one or 2028. So again, we need to just keep an eye on that, but it's not burning a hole at the moment. Octagon Theatre, I mentioned that earlier on. I think Tom has also kindly mentioned that travellers and vehicle dwellers in the Glastonbury area became a very hot and contentious topic in the previous committee, and I think we need to keep that on our radar. Suzanne Hart was very strong advocate for the council taking more action, but as inevitably with these things, where the council's powers lie, where the problems lie, don't always match, and so it's a difficult one to sort of sort out. I mentioned Fusion Leisure. And right, that's it. Now, are there any other items? Now, Cara Strom has been very patient, if I just hold her, Nick, because there's something you wanted to bring to our attention for the committee to look at, Cara, and apologies for taking so long, but here we are.
Thank you, Chair. I'm here this morning to ask that sewage pollution and water quality at Blue Anchor and Dunster Beach be included in the work programme. Now, over the last week, there have been reports of sewage discharges and elevated bacterial levels. This has caused a real concern in the local area, and residents are questioning safety. It clearly has implications for public health, the environment, and the local economy. I'd like the committee to take a focused look at the scale of the issue, available data, and the role of Wessex Water and other agencies, so we're clear on accountability and what action can be taken.
Okay, that sounds fine. So in Blue Anchor, is it Wessex rather than South West Water?
Wessex, yeah.
So Wessex is actually the sewage operator on the entire coastline from Porlock East, I suppose. Okay, that makes it a lot easier. Yes, I suspect if we're going to pick this up, we would need to look at the whole of the Somerset coast rather than just a small part of it. But as you say, if there's information about sewage outflows, and there's quite a lot of stuff out there, and the impact on bathing waters and things like that, then I think it's something that we can have a look at. Again, I'll put that on my list to work through next week, discuss it with Democratic Services first, and then with officers to see how the best way of approaching this. In a way, it's a bit like the M5 closures. We are a very interested stakeholder like this, but the operational decisions that lead to the issue we're concerned about lie with another body. So we'll have to just see how we can cut into it. Is that okay?
Yes, that's great. Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you for coming, Henry.
Mr. Chairman, this problem, there was a dog that had to go to the vet, I think in Taunton, this week. Because it ingested sewage, and this problem is not just on the coast, it's also in our rivers. Yeah. My River Cam has a general notice to all the parishes down it not to let either children or dogs go in the river at all because it is too badly polluted.
Okay, well, I'll put aside now also rivers. Yeah. Yes, Fran.
Thank you. I think it needs to be broadened across, because it is I think it's actually Wessex Water that we need to have coming to us, because I think it is across our rivers and it is across our coastline, etc. So as Henry said, it's broader. It most definitely is broader.
Okay, now, have we captured everything? Nick? Oh, sorry, you did put your hand up earlier. I beg your pardon.
That's all right. I forgive you. Anyway, very nice to be on this committee. So I haven't been involved in any of the climate or environmental up to now. And so there's one thing looking through this work programme that I've noticed is missing. I'm not sure whether it comes to our committee or not, but there is a consultation coming this summer on public spaces protection orders. Does that come through to this committee? Would that results of that consultation come to us? And I have to say, there's one thing that was raised about from one resident of mine, was asking whether it was going to extend to flying of drones from our public open spaces. But I was wondering, is a public spaces protection order consultation?
I don't know. I mean, it sounds as if it might be. Do you know, Jamie?
I don't specifically, Chair. I can't imagine it would go to any of the other committees, so I would imagine it would be here, but we can take that away.
Yes, so it's the scope of this committee covers regulatory and operational services, so I would imagine yes, it is.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Do we have powers over drones?
I don't think we do, but
I wasn't sure. I know they're a real nuisance.
I think I do know that the National Trust, they have very strong guidelines of how you fly drones from their land. Because it's a resident of mine was just asking me about flying from their park, because a lot of back gardens are very close to parks, and how do you stop drones flying across onto people's privacy? And I'm wondering whether that is something. I brought it to the town council, and I thought it should something that come to Somerset Council. You know, it comes from our own land. Perhaps people, I mean, they have to have licenses, but do they also need to have permission? Actually, if they want to fly from our land.
I think that's a good point. Alan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. observation. If we achieve all this we've talked about this morning, we'll have a super Somerset. In the age I am, some of these things there's no answer to. And I'll finish there. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, yeah, I mean, yes, as you've seen, there's a massive work. Have I missed anything, Dave?
Thank you. I have a nasty feeling we need new two committees. It's certainly quite a work programme. Yeah, in terms of forward plan, yeah, I think there are some things which should be in there, and which I expect will be, and we probably want to give them space now. One is potentially the corporate plan, which is now coming, and I'm wondering whether that's going to all of the scrutinies. Now, the previous Climate in Place had for a very long time been asking about action plans on the climate vision and the energy plan. And if I remember correctly, they'd been on the forward plan for something like 18 months or so, certainly a long time. And, you know, were offered to the committee, but they never came. I'm guessing now that the corporate plan is where we would expect these things to be. And probably that should be on scrutiny committees. And just similarly, the budgets. We got into the good habit last year of the relevant items in relation to budgets coming to each of the scrutinies, and I think we should move making sure there's space for that too.
Yeah. Now, Jamie, in respect of directorate budgets, is it still going to go to corporate and resources, or are some of it coming to us on a quarterly basis? Do you know?
As far as I'm aware, it's just going to the corporate and resources, but corporate and strategic as it is now.
Yeah. All right, thank you. Yeah, I have to say, when I chaired place before and when I was doing communities, I always enjoyed seeing the budget. We never had to spend a vast amount of time on it, but it did give us a much better understanding of where things stood. So anyway, David.
Yeah, so I think that needs to be checked. We had a scrutiny review on, and I'm pretty sure one of the recommendations from scrutiny review was it's really important that the committee that knows about the subject is involved in the scrutiny, and that it was not corporate and resources. And I don't think, and corporate and resources used to say it wasn't them, and you keep wanting to check that it was going back to the other scrutinies. I think there's something important here, that it does need to be going back to each of the scrutinies on budget.
I don't disagree with that. I think it's I think, you know, as a group we need to be cited on all aspects of the work that we're scrutinising. Okay, are there any other aspects that I've missed? Last chance. Good. Right, move on. Fine. Thank you very much for those in the room and online for your contributions, and thank you for the questioners. We will take the points raised there. Can I now move on to agenda item 6? And I don't know, Richard, are you going to introduce this? And Mike, are you proposing to give it or not?
No, I'm happy, obviously, for the executive lead to introduce it and then the officers to carry on.
Okay, so Richard will introduce it, and then Peter Hobley will be the service manager for the rights of way, will take us through his presentation.
Thank you, Chair. And actually, it's rather remiss of me. I forgot to congratulate you on your position as the chair of this brand new committee, which is has quite deep scope, as we've just seen from the previous item. So I'd like to introduce Peter Hobley, our rights of way officer. I think it's fair to say that since the reorganisation of this council, rights of way has been particularly hard hit in relation to the members of staff. It's a much reduced area of this council. However, as I hope you will see, the quality of the work and the actual outcomes that is produced by the rights of way team is just incredible. And the way they've managed their area despite the reduction in staff. It has to be acknowledged, and also the volunteers in which they won't say employ, that's not quite the right word, but the volunteers across Somerset that help with the rights of ways is something else. I will just pass straight on to Peter, who's been managing this area incredibly well.
Peter, welcome to the committee, and you're going to speak for about 10 minutes or so, 10 minutes just over. Take us through the presentation and then we'll have some questions. Is that all right?
Absolutely. Good morning, everyone. Richard introduced me, so I'm the Rights of Way Service Manager for Somerset Council, and this is an update on where we are in terms of our current resourcing, workload, policies and performance. Without further ado.
Sorry, Peter, can you move just a little bit closer to the mic?
Without further ado, I'll move on to the next slide. Apologies to those of you who might have seen this one before, but I think it's quite impactful. It's at a glance, it gives you an idea of the length of our network and the density of our network for public rights of way. It's only 500 kilometres short of the length of the road network, so it is very extensive. And just to give you an idea, all the sort of purple routes there, the footpaths, the green routes are the bridleways and restricted byways. And there's the odd dashed green line, which is a byway open to all traffic. Just gives you an idea of the size of the network and what we deal with. And that's not all of the work that we do. So there's stuff that we do on top of maintaining that network. Just to give you an idea as to the size of the service and the impact of the workforce reduction programme. The red cells are the ones, the positions that were deleted as part of the workforce reduction. So there's 4 officer reductions in the definitive map team. There were 3, and there was 1 in the area warden team. And then there's also a reduction in the senior officers where 2 of the lead officers for maintenance and bridges, they were consolidated into 1, and that has led to a change in the reporting lines demonstrated by the yellow boxes and lines. So it was 3 sub-teams, shall we say: definitive map, which is the legal record, maintenance, kind of day-to-day maintenance, and then bridges was the more significant bridges. Now it's 2 sub-teams. We also have an agency agreement with Exmoor National Park for the rights of way within the national park. So we provide funding to them and they carry out that function within their boundary. So I did touch upon it. We don't just do rights of way in the rights of way service. We also oversee open access land. We are in partnership with the Natural England with regard to managing the National Trail, King Charles III England Coast Path. Some of you will have picked up on that being nationally launched as now officially open, but in Somerset it's been open for 10 years now. We also do other promoted trails such as the Coleridge Way, River Parrot Trail, and we've also got 6 volunteer schemes that we manage. We also cover town and village greens registration, and we also are the secretariat for the Local Access Forum, which is a statutory body. This is just a select few bits of statute. There's plenty more, but these are the principal ones that we deal with in relation to rights of way and commons, and also coastal access. The ones in red are the kind of the highlights really in terms of day-to-day work, the ones that we deal with the most, whether that be as a highway authority, a surveying authority, or as an access authority. So or as a local planning authority as well. Coming on to workload, just to give you an idea as to what the team deals with or is dealing with. Starting with maintenance, we have a running total of around 4,000 live issues. Not all of those are necessarily valid issues because some of them will be on the system but yet to be inspected. So some of them do end up being not valid, but that just gives you an idea of the overall workload. And within that, we do have a program in relation to significant bridges and structures, which is currently a program of 157 structures. We also have a planned path and bridge inspection program. And just to highlight, within the bridge inspection program, there's 164 poor condition vehicular bridges. So these are often bridges that are not of our installation. They're often privately owned, and they have a vehicular purpose for the landowner, but equally carry a public right of way that is non-vehicular. So it's kind of a shared asset with principal responsibility on the landowner to make sure that that is in good condition, although we do offer grants towards that to recognise our use of that asset from a public right of way point of view. We've got 360-ish volunteers across the several schemes that we administer, as well as some third-party working groups and agents such as the Ramblers, parish councils, etc. Moving on to modifications and town and village greens. It's been well documented in terms of the backlog of rights of way modification applications. These are where someone asserts that the legal record is not correct and needs to be amended. So we have currently 455 applications. We have 22 live investigations that are forecast for this current year. We also have a very small number of town and village green applications. One of those is live currently. So that's where the people assert that the record is wrong and needs to be amended. Other ways of changing the legal record are public path orders, typically a diversion, and we have a smaller number of those. We have 62 applications currently in progress and 60 that are awaiting investigation or assessment. The other way that the network can be managed is similar to the road network, is temporary closures. So we handle those as well for public rights of way. We have, it's changing all the time, but roughly 19 are from external sources, utility companies, developers, etc. And then we also have some internal ones in relation to health and safety issues and bridges where there's danger or an issue there where we have to control public access. We also deal with development control. So when there's a planning application that directly impacts or abuts a public right of way, we respond to those consultations. And we've seen a dramatic increase in those, which in itself is a good thing because that didn't always happen. So we're able to hopefully prevent legacies from occurring that used to occur in the past. But obviously it does have a resource implication. That does lead to numerous legal agreements and other works and securing financial contributions where we can. We also have major development that often impacts on rights of way, such as the Hinkley Point C development, the tidal barrier at Bridgewater, and also trunk road schemes such as the A303 dualling. And just a few other things as well to add to that workload, national trail management, such as the King Charles III England Coast Path, the local access forum, the statutory advisory body, which meets twice a year, and also quite a few general inquiries as well, which can become quite complex. So how do we manage all this workload? We have a number of policies in place. The Rights of Way Improvement Plan is on its second edition, and that was published in 2015. And that includes a maintenance and enforcement policy as an appendix, which very roughly follows the statutory duties that we do have in place to control rights of way. We also have the Rights of Way Safety Inspection Manual. That's the first incarnation of that was 2018, and that is currently under review. And that's very much around how we inspect and respond to issues on the network. We also have the statements of priorities. This relates to the modifications to the definitive map that I talked about, which is the legal record. Initially developed to defend appeals against non-determination from applicants, but it's equally evolved into something that helps to prioritise our workload. And then lastly, we have the diversions policy. Again, a fairly recent update to that a few years ago, and that was to reflect the combining powers that occurred through unitary. We're now the LPA as well as the Highway Authority. So development-related diversions came into the diversion policy off the back of the local government reorganisation. So just a little bit more detail about how we prioritise. In terms of maintenance, we do a risk-based approach regarding investigatory timescales, and that relies on path, category and type of issue to inform that priority. Officers will take a dynamic risk assessment approach, so once they've investigated the issue, the actual priority may change. And to balance with a lot of the, shall we say, firefighting in terms of the maintenance workload, we also try and keep a degree of movement on some of the long-term issues, which can be very complex to resolve, to try and achieve that balance. In terms of modification applications, the priorities in relation to that significant backlog and workload is Secretary of State directions, where the applicant has been successful in terms of non-determination appeal, and we've been directed to investigate within a certain timescale. And also applications that are based on user evidence, they are now prioritised because there is the risk that that user evidence cannot be tested at public inquiry due to the length of time it might take us to get to that application and the age of the users that might give that evidence. We also have uncertified applications. So there's two stages to an application. The first stage, we have to put that on a statutory register. The second stage is certifying it where the applicant serves notice on the relevant landowners that are affected by that application. And that triggers our duty to investigate. So where they're not certified as part of that second stage of applying, we deprioritise that until such time as they have been certified. Historically, we were very focused on investigation work and making sure we got determinations up to try and control the backlog of applications. But what that did was it did impact on dealing with opposed orders that we'd made. So we're now trying to rebalance that workload so that some of those opposed orders, which can be many years old, are now getting referred to the Secretary of State for their determination, whether that be by written representation or by public inquiry. And then lastly, in terms of public path orders, we prioritise rail level crossing and other safety related applications. And after those, we then prioritise development related applications. All other applications then come after that in relation to, say, landowner applications in relation to, say, crossfield path to a headland path, for example. Moving on to performance, this is a graphic that goes back to 2002 to 2003, which just so happens to be when I joined the former county council. A significant investment from the local transport plan funding led to a sudden increase in the ease of use percentage of the network. So this is it was a recognised best value performance indicator, which we have continued to monitor. And you can see that significant increase happened over about 5 years, and we've stabilised ever since, pretty much, with the odd variation from year to year. Initially, it was a 5% sample. It's now 10% sample of the network every year. Bit difficult to benchmark that now because not every authority continues to record it. We use trained volunteers to undertake that indicator monitoring. But from the last records we had, we are probably above average in terms of our type of council size. In terms of volunteer hours, roughly around the 22,000 plus mark. Very difficult to get all volunteers to record their hours, but that's just a rough indication of their contribution. And that doesn't capture all the other third parties that might contribute, such as parish and town councils, who also have statutory powers in relation to rights of way maintenance. This just gives you an idea of the issues reported and resolved over time. So the purple line is the total issues that we're managing, and the green line is those that are resolved by our area warden team and others. So there's a general trend of the reporting of issues tracking above what we're able to resolve, but there are a few occasions where that switches the other way. But the overall trend is a slight increase in the number of live issues, which you can see there. For May this year was 4,076, and that excludes Exmoor National Park. You can see when the COVID pandemic hit, there was quite a peak there, and that has kind of continued thereafter. So the impact of the lockdown saw a lot of people discover our Rights Away network and also discover our website as to how to report issues. Moving on to performance of the definitive map. This table shows the applications received in relation to the modification applications and those that are determined on an annual basis, and how that has had an impact on the level of undetermined applications in the backlog. As you can see, most years those incoming exceed those that we determine, and therefore the backlog has increased. We only have 1.2 FTE in terms of officers on investigating those applications currently, because they do deal with a fair number of other types of work beyond just investigating applications. So that doesn't help in terms of the actual level of determinations we can achieve. But we have done everything we can to look at how we can improve processes to increase the determination rate per officer. So that's obviously impacted by staff retention and attracting experienced staff, as well as the more recent workforce reduction. Just a couple of other authorities there in terms of their backlogs. So we're not alone. There are some that are higher than Somerset, and it is a national issue and something that's not going to go away quickly. In terms of Secretary of State directions following non-determination appeals, we've got 22 that are outstanding and overdue, and 13 of which are currently priority for determining. And in terms of the other types of work covered by this team, we've got 17 public path orders that were made last year and 36 temporary closure orders also undertaken. Just to move on from the determination side of the modifications, we also deal with the opposed orders, which I touched upon, as well as the appeals against refusal as opposed to non-determination. So this is a bit like in a planning context, depending on what the officer or committee decision is. So in terms of opposed orders, that is, you can see is slowly increasing, but has been impacted by obviously workforce reduction of late. And where we have taken opposed orders to PINs, the inspector has always confirmed the position that we've supported. So that backs up our judgment in that respect in terms of the orders that we have made. Unfortunately, not quite so successful in terms of the appeals against refusal, and we are now sort of amending our approach to that in terms of our consideration of the balance of probabilities test in relation to evidence. Lastly, just to come on to challenges, obviously I've mentioned the reduction in workforce, staff retention and absence obviously contributes as well to that challenge. Climate change, an ever increasing challenge for a number of services, and we're no exception. We've got a longer and more unpredictable growing season, which makes executing a contracted cut on the network more difficult. So that's where empowering local communities to undertake that cut can make sure it's done when it's needed and achieve the best value for that. Storm and rain events, it's been touched upon already, coastal and riverine erosion, those are issues. The number of bridges that are being closed in relation to health and safety, that and maintaining those temporary closures, that is impacting on our planned inspection programme for bridges, and that's currently a red risk. on the risk register. The pressure on the revenue budget is obviously a challenge, but we do have our volunteer army to help with that, as well as local councils, and guidance has been issued to parish and town councils to help us offset the pressures on our budgets. Complex casework is always a challenge. We've got lots of legacy issues from the 50s and 60s, and also shared assets can be very complex casework. We have minimal enforcement resource, so that's a shared resource with planning and gypsies and travellers. Customer contact has probably increased in the last year in terms of not only the issue reporting since the COVID pandemic, but equally, more increasingly, the complaints in the FOI and the EIR and other complex inquiries consume a bit more time than they used to. We have no control over the incoming rate of modification applications, so that is currently a relatively low bar for applicants to apply for those, and we have a limited say in how we can reject those. And moving on to external delays, for example, Environment Agency permits can have a considerable impact on how we can deliver on our structures and bridges projects. So those are quite time critical, and delays to permits can cause significant slippage. We still await the regulations for the rights of way reform, which came out of the Deregulation Act 2015. So we're now 11 years on from that act and still awaiting the regulations. Delivery of Section 106 contributions, again, that is something that we need to look at the resourcing of in terms of delivery of those.
My mind, you have to deal with some of the clunkiest legislation there is around, and it's also a subject that attracts a huge amount of local interest one way and the other, and so trying to deal with those conflicts within the legislative framework that you have must be especially challenging. Anyway, so I do commend you for your work. Now, members, do we have any questions? Henry Hobhouse was the first person to catch my eye.
For those of you who were members of the Environment Committee, you will know I am a nerd on rights of way. And I'm just going to tell the rest of you why, and then I'm going to ask some fairly difficult questions. My grandfather wrote a report called the Hobhouse Report, which set up the way the national parks and the footpaths were defined in 1947. The act that followed that in 49 set up the national parks, did not take his suggestions on footpaths, and made everything incredibly complicated. I thoroughly approve of having a definitive map and statement, but I have followed this since I've been a councillor in 2005. Right, we have a statement in front of us which says that they have a minimum control over modifications. Mr. Hoblin, sorry to bring this up in public. You have 455 modification applications. How many of those are not filled in correctly? And I know the figure because you've given it to me in the past.
Are you referring to the certification?
I'm referring to the modification applications, which do not give any of the research into why they think they should be a modification, because every application is supposed to contain the research which tells you why it should be modified.
As far as I know, all of our applications are valid in terms of fulfilling Part 1 of Schedule 14.
I will send you your email, which tells me that roughly 305 applications were not correctly filled in, and that you would go back to the applicant before they got put through the system. All right?
I'll happily receive that email, but I don't recall it.
You sent it to me some time ago.
It must have.
I've not finished yet. It goes on. I am a nerd on this, Mr. Chairman. You'll have to excuse me. The situation is that the application for modifications are mainly coming from the Horse Riders Association, whose name I can't think of. No, it's Somerset operation. Every application is supposed to show research into why an application should be changed from a footpath to a bridleway. And correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm very happy to be corrected. And most of the applications we have on the 455, they have not done any research. I tried to bring in a committee, which other councils have, which is made up of trained members who look at every single modification application as it comes in and decides whether or not it should go to committee or whether or not it had not been correctly put together. That was turned down by strategic planning. We have now got, as you have seen, they are covering about 20 applications a year, Mr. Hobley.
It's a bit less than that. In terms of actual determinations, it's probably in single figures now.
Okay, so you can now do the mathematics, what the waiting list is, because we've accepted applications which say, I think this should be a bridleway, which is not the correct form it should be in. I wish to say that in North Cadbury, I volunteer to help keep the footpaths clear. I have absolutely no problem with footpaths at all. My second question is how many bridges, because I have 2 in my division, are closed because of lack of money to reopen them when they get in a dangerous state. I have one at Mudford and I'm thinking I have one at Rimpton, but again, I'm willing to be corrected. How many across the county are we got closed because of lack of finance?
Yeah, so I don't have that exact figure because some of the closures are being lifted where we are taking the view that to leave the dangerous structure in situ is not the best medium-term, short-term or medium-term approach. So we are removing those structures to remove the danger, but the actual replacement of the structure is on the programme for a later date. So the actual, where we remove the structure, we lift the closure because it effectively removes the danger to the public, but it's around the 30 mark across the county, just to give you an idea.
So we need to feed in more money if we're going to keep those footpaths operational, because at the moment they're closed. My final point on this is that there are hundreds of sheep that are killed on footpaths because people haven't kept their dogs on a lead. On the other hand, there are 4 to 5 people a year who are killed on footpaths every year because they've got their dog on a lead and the cattle get into a state with the dog and they absolutely kill the person who has got the dog on the lead. And we need to make sure that people are keeping their dogs on lead when they're near sheep, but take their dogs off of the lead when they are near cattle, because the dog can run much faster than either you or the cattle can, and they will be fine. And before my cousin, and I'm naming no names, got fined a serious amount of money by Bath and North East Somerset because he put a bull in a field where it shouldn't have been. And it is the farmer's responsibility to ensure that the footpaths are as safe as possible. But even young heifers will take a person out, and I mean they get taken out. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Henry. It's probably to the point. I think the bridges thing. I mean, the interesting point you've just raised is that you remove the closure, but if you've also removed the bridge, then there is a, by definition, break in the path. So I'm not quite sure how that rationalizes really. I mean, unless it's just a legal thing to say that you haven't got a path closure, but in essence, on the ground, the path is effectively closed. Is there any other?
I mean, you're absolutely right, Chair. I mean, that is, I mean, the temporary closure is primarily put in place to safeguard the public in terms of the dangerous structure. So once we remove that dangerous structure, we erect signs to say there's a missing bridge to warn people, so they don't walk miles down a path to find that they can't go any further. So we do put advanced warning signs in place, but we don't feel there's a need for the actual legal order anymore. But it, as you say, it does sever the path and renders it, a non-through route.
I mean, it just occurs to me that, would keeping the closures in place be a useful lever for extracting more resources?
The bridge programme is well funded through the local transport plan funding. So we do have a 1.2 million capital budget, roughly speaking, on an annual basis. But we do experience a number of issues in terms of delivery. And, I touched on Environment Agency permits, but other ecological issues, access to land, dealing with landowners in that respect for, time of year. For some projects, you're looking at a very finite window once you add all that together. So we do experience slippage generally every year in that programme, but funding per se is not necessarily the problem there.
Yeah, I mean, yes, I don't underestimate the scope of the problem or the difficulty of the problem. I mean, there's one in my ward where the bridge is unsafe. It's been closed, but the river has also shifted and taken out some of the path. So there's a big problem there. Anyway, right, moving on to other people who caught my eye. Dave Mansell first, then Fran, then Alan Bradford and Tom.
Yes, may I ask about the role of landowners in this, sort of in general, in terms of looking after footpaths which go through their land, and specifically on cutting back hedges?
Certainly. So landowners' responsibilities are primarily to keep the rights of way free of obstruction. And that can be a whole host of things, whether it be crops, ploughing, farm machinery, etc., fences, overgrown hedges. If the hedge is their responsibility, that's their boundary, then it should be cut back in terms of any overhang growth on public rights of way. And they are also responsible for the vast majority of limitations on rights of way. So that, when I say limitations, that refers to what we know stiles and gates. But they are able to claim 25% of reasonable costs in maintaining stiles or gates. So we do work with landowners in terms of supplying those materials. Okay.
Thank you. Fran Smith, please.
Thank you. It was really interesting. I've got a couple of questions. One of the challenges mentioned is climate change. So I just wonder, how are you adapting within your area to deal with this? And the other question I had was, I'd like a little bit more information on the Section 106 contributions, because what is the budget currently, and how much could we lose if it's not used? Because often, I am aware of Section 106 being lost because we haven't got round to being able to spend it in time. And obviously, we need those extra finances to help your area. And with the discussion that Henry's brought forward about rights of way and going through fields and bulls and etc., there are a lot of the public that are wandering around the countryside who have absolutely no idea about the countryside. We don't get public service broadcasts or anything like that anymore on our televisions for those who are old enough to remember all of this sort of thing. So is there any kind of educational work we can do as a council to raise some of the issues about rights of ways and the responsibilities that, landowners have and we have as general public using the rights of ways? Thank you.
Okay, so the climate change question, I think I touched on it in the presentation. Working with volunteers and parish councils in particular and community groups, that is probably the best thing we can do to to address the variation in growth rates and when that growth happens in the season. So we do still have a contracted cut, and that is given to local contractors, small contractors, and that amounts to about 100k a year. But that is programmed into various windows throughout the year. So a path is either cut once towards the end of June, twice end of May, end of August, or 3 times for all those 3. But increasingly, we're seeing some paths needing an extra cut in late September, October, and trying to get those contracts to hit the optimum points of that growth. It is quite tricky. So where we can empower communities or volunteers to do that cutting of vegetation, because we are responsible for the surface upgrowth, stingers, brambles, that kind of thing that does occur. They're local, so they're on hand and they can see when the growth is at its greatest and hopefully achieve that best value. So we do have the Rights of Way Strimmer scheme, which is a volunteer scheme. We've got about 50 volunteers across the council that have strimmers, and they try and look after all their rights of way in their parish area. So that's one of the ways that we're trying to tackle the impacts of climate change. Erosion from intense rainfall, whether it be coastal or riverine, is a bit more tricky. I'd say the coastal side of things, we do have provisions within the coastal path legislation that allows us to statutorily roll back the line of the path, and that can be against landowners' wishes, but generally speaking, we do have good working relationships with those coastal landowners, and we have had to do that in a number of locations. Riverine erosion of public rights of way is a little bit more tricky and often will require a diversion order, which I touched on before. Many rights of way do follow natural old lanes, holloways, which also act as drainage channels, and they can be incredibly difficult. And some of the temporary closures do actually relate to that kind of erosion. And in those cases, it might be that we do have to look at a diversion out of that route into neighbouring land, and we may have to pay compensation for that. But that's not a piece of work that's very prominent at the moment, just because of all the other work that we're dealing with. So unfortunately, some of those will drop into the temporary closure box for the time being. Section 106, I don't know the precise figure, but generally the contributions that we secure can be anything from 10,000 to 50,000, and some of those are on a 10-year refundable. So where they have started to go towards timing out, we generally have secured extensions with the relevant contributors to those. But we probably have about, I'd say it's under 10 in total in terms of contributions, but some will be from like the National Grid in relation to the Connections project to Hinkley Point. We still have some Hinkley Point funding in relation to rights of way improvements. And then we have residential development contributions as well.
Come back. I don't want to give you any more work to do because obviously you're, but I was talking about how can we promote and where would that, this is a question I'm going to ask and it's going to kind of, yeah, it's a good idea, but who would pick up on that? I mean, as something to be able to promote the work of the rights of ways and our responsibilities, etc. Well, I don't think you've got any more capacity.
It seems a sort of Cinderella service, but it's incredibly important to the people of Somerset. So, sorry, Peter, you were going to say?
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, we do, because we manage the National Trail now, the England Coast Path, and we have been doing for the last 10 years, we do have a periodic newsletter in relation to the Coast Path, and people can register for that through social media channels, etc. But that doesn't really touch upon everything we do, it's just the Coast Path. We used to have staff who would go to country shows, Bath and West, Dunster Show, Yeovil Country Park Show. Don't know whether that's still running, but that was our kind of way of providing some kind of public promotion and awareness raising in relation to how to behave on rights of way, and also reminding landowners of their responsibilities. And we also did have a very short education program where some of our team would go into schools. It wasn't anything formalised, but those were all things that, you know, I would say we no longer have the capacity to do so. But just to give you an idea as to how we used to, and if time allowed, we'd probably look at some kind of timely press releases throughout the year, whether that be around, you know, when the calves are let out or when the crops are growing, etc. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Now I've got 3 more speakers, and I think we need to draw a line on it because we have to move on. Steve Ashton, though, you wanted to come at this point?
Yeah, just a quick question. On the earlier slide, you mentioned non-determination appeals. Is this are there guidelines on how long, with the amount of backlog you've got, is this a risk to Somerset Council that if the horse riders suddenly en masse decide to appeal, it's going to sort of overload us or saddle us with extra costs or anything like that?
I'll try not to continue the puns. So it's a 12-month period. So once an application has been certified, so where the applicant has served notice on the landowner is affected, if we haven't determined it within 12 months after that date, then they can appeal to the Secretary of State for non-determination. And we have had years where we have had probably upwards of 30 or 40 appeals. So, you know, we have dealt with a lot of appeals already, but it is a struggle to deal with them within the timeline set by the Secretary of State in terms of the directions, because historically we would defend those appeals with our statements of priorities, and the Secretary of State would agree with us. But now that the weight has become so great in terms of the backlog, the Secretary of State has, for the last, I don't know, 6-7 years, probably taken a position of agreeing with the appellant, and directions tend to be anything between 6 months to 2 or 3 years now.
Okay, thank you. Now I've got 3 speakers registered, and I've got another one waving at me. I'd really like to get through this item before 12 o'clock if we can. So if I can ask you all to be brisk, and we'll see how many questions we can fit in. The first one on my list is Alan Bradford.
Right, okay, Mr. Chairman.
There we go, Alan.
So I just like to ask, how many staff you got working for you actually?
19 currently.
19.
Some of those are part-time.
Part-time, there you go. It's pretty obvious to me that this series of footpaths all over Somerset, you can't keep running things to the same standard but cutting workforce and cutting budgets. That would never, ever work. Believe you me. I've at the M5 go through my place 55 years ago, and I was involved in a lot of footpath closures. People used to walk from school from the other side of the motorway down to that side. Several places I've been involved in. A lot of developments, North Petherton and Bridgewater, with footpaths all the way around. And really, a lot of this stuff is under local knowledge. Local knowledge. So if I had to sort this out, I put this onto some of the local town and parish councils. Give them a budget every year, a footpath budget, for et cetera, do what they want to do and move on. Sorry, Mr. I'm going to move it quickly. I've been told Henry was right what he said. You know, there's an awful lot of dog walkers about at the moment, healthy reasons, mental health. People need to walk. Footpaths are important. Space is important. But we all got to get on. I know some farmers are grumblier than others. Some are good, some ain't quite so good. But the public do wind farmers up sometimes because they got the divine right to go exactly where they want, where they like. It doesn't work. And if they were all signposted a lot better, there wouldn't be half of these problems. I do mean a signpost you can see, not one you got to have a double pair of glasses to look at. All right, and I'll say no more. I could go on for quite a time on this because I've been involved in an awful lot of this stuff. Always easy to pick the phone up 20 years ago. Problems with a footpath, do a few kissing gates. Within 3 days, team was out, done it. My mind was at rest. Animals were in the field. Everybody was happy. Things have changed.
Thank you, Alan. There have been various.
Sorry.
Yeah, there have been various parish initiatives when money's been available, but I take the general point. Right, Tom, please.
Thank you. I just want to touch on the minimal enforcement resource. well, I think most of us know that there's minimal enforcement with planning as well, because I've and a lot of my parish councils have tried to put a lot of enforcement complaints forward. I just want to know how you're going to tackle that over the next 2 years. Thank you.
Yeah, so it is a very small resource. It's a part of one person, and the main focus of our service currently is on the health and safety of the public. So that's how we assess the issues that are reported to us, and so actual enforcement does take somewhat of a back seat. The public can force our arm in that respect in relation to obstructions, and also in terms of where the surface is out of repair. So there is notices that can be served on the council in relation to both, and that sets in train a timeline. So we do deal with those notices as and when they come in, and that can be very resource intensive to deal with them in that way. But yes, we have had an enforcement team within the service historically, but that was a casualty of a previous budget reduction.
Thank you. Right, Nick, you are in Andy Kendall's hands. Depends how quickly he can ask his question. So, Nick, Andy, rather.
Thank you, Chair. Mine will be quite quick. What's the difference between a town and a village green?
That is a good question, and I will defer to my colleague in the wings here.
Okay. The next one is just try a lot more questions being asked, but on maintenance, if they're going across someone else's land, who's responsible for the maintenance of that path? There's a tarmac path and the tree roots are coming up.
Sorry, the issue is a tarmac path.
It's a right of way going across, I think it's a different person's land now, not yours.
Right.
Who's responsible for the maintenance of that tarmac path if the tree roots are lifting?
More than likely to be ours as a highway authority.
Did you want to answer the point about the village and town green? All right, okay. Right, Nick, you have half a minute.
Okay, thank you. Two very quick questions. First one is, what happens when the development comes across or builds across a right of way? Are they expected to maintain that right of way? Are they expected to maintain that right of way for the local residents while they're doing the development? And how are they to return the right of way? Can it be returned as, say, a road with traffic, or does it have to be returned as non-traffic? So I just question, because there's development going on, it cuts across the right of way, and of course local residents can't go along it at the moment, and I think they're kind of asking, can they? So does the developer have to keep it open whilst they're building, or can they temporarily close it? My other question was just out of, because I'm very appreciative of all the volunteers. I was going to ask, how much litter do they pick up whilst they're going along, streaming this hedge? And I'm wondering if it's a lot, how can we get the message out there to not litter our... But anyway, the development is first.
Yes. Firstly, development. I'll try not to take too long, but it is quite an involved subject. Basically, a developer, if they've got planning permission, that doesn't empower them to obstruct the right of way. So there are other statutory processes that they have to follow, whether that be applying for a temporary closure or applying for a permanent diversion order, depending on how the development impacts on the public right of way. And we try and do what we can in terms of granting conditions through our consultation responses to make sure that the developers comply with that, not obstructing the right of way. In terms of how they return them, they will often be improved, not necessarily in the same place. They may be diverted elsewhere through the site. And where it's within their land ownership, we generally get the developer to make that improvement to that surface, generally through a legal agreement. Where it might have the actual existence of the development coming forward has a negative impact in terms of the increased use on that right of way. That's where we would secure contributions to try and offset potential future issues outside of the developer's site. So yes, that just gives you a rough idea. Developers don't always comply with the sequence of what we would like, but wherever possible, we try to encourage them to apply for the relevant statutory order at the relevant appropriate time. In terms of litter picking, I have no idea.
Fine. Right. Okay.
Well, I guess it sounds like it's kind of being back down to enforcement then. If a developer returns an area of land and they've built the houses and the right of way is perhaps not where it used to be or how it used to be, it comes down to enforcement again.
Probably direct discussions with the team is probably the appropriate course. Right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your, Peter, thank you for your presentation. Everybody, thank you very much for the questions. I'd like to call a 5-minute break. I've got 10 minutes on the schedule, but I want 5 minutes because we're running a bit late. So if I could have everybody back here, please, by 6 minutes past, and then we'll do the EV cross pavements item. So I think we probably do need to make a start. Richard, did you want to introduce this item?
Thank you, Chair. This report brings forward proposals for a time-limited pilot to explore the use of cross-pavement channels as a way of enabling safe electric vehicle charging for residents who do not have access to off-street parking. Members may recall that this issue was referenced during the previous scrutiny discussion on the Levi programme, where cross-pavement channels were not included within the scope. Since then, an officer task and finish group has been established to explore the options and access delivery models and associated risks. We are seeing increasing inquiries from residents in this position, and at present Somerset Council does not have a policy or approved process which would allow these installations to be considered or managed safely within the public highway. The report before you sets out the nature of the issues, the national guidance and funding context, and the work has been undertaken by officers to assess different delivery models and associated risks. Based on that assessment, officers are recommending a controlled supplier-led pilot as the lowest risk way to generate local evidence before any future policy decisions are considered. Importantly, this is not a proposal to adopt cross-pavement channels as a policy. It is an exploratory pilot funded through government grant designed to test feasibility, safety management and oversight arrangements in the Somerset context, with findings reported back to members. I will now ask Sue Tomlinson, the author of a report, to take the committee through the key issues and proposals, highlighting the main points for scrutiny. We've also got Andy Coupé, who's also on the task and finish team.
Okay, Sue, thank you very much. Welcome to the meeting.
Great.
The floor is yours.
Thank you. So I'm Sue Tomlinson. I'm a programme manager within. Yeah, sorry, I'll have it as close as possible. I told you. Sorry, I've got such a soft voice. So I'm Sue Tomlinson. I'm a programme manager within infrastructure and transport, and I'm responsible for the delivery of EV infrastructure, which includes the Levi programme and also the cross pavement channels. As Richard has said, I've also got my colleague Andy Coupé with me today, who is the head of service for infrastructure programmes, and I've also got Chris Bezic, who is our project manager. Hopefully you've had a chance to read the report and the associated appendices, in particular Appendix B, which I will be having a look at with you throughout the presentation. I'm sure you've got lots of questions, and we will get to the questions, but I do have slides that I want to go through first of all, so that I can explain to you the challenge of on-street charging for those residents who don't have access to off-street parking. That's going to include me talking about what a cross pavement channel is, the funding that we've received, the risks associated with 3 different delivery models, what a pilot might look like, and then what our next steps will be. My slides aren't moving. Oh, there. Okay, so access to EV charging across Somerset is not equal. Around 1 in 4 households don't have off-street parking, which means they don't have a driveway, so therefore are unable to install their own charge point. The pictures on the right-hand side of the slides are just an example of the types of properties that don't have driveways. These are several terraced streets in the Taunton area. As I said, it's just an example because there are many different locations across Somerset with lots of different types of street layouts and different types of houses that are affected. Residents that live in these properties, they can't charge at home and they have to rely on public charging or workplace charging, which means for those residents that it's higher costs for them, they've got reduced convenience, and there's an inequity compared to those people that have got their own driveway. A solution to this is a cross-pavement channel, and that's what the report is about. A cross-pavement channel is a purpose-built channel installed in the pavement, and the images on the right-hand side are an example of a cross-pavement channel. And as you can see from those images, once the channel is installed, it does allow the charging cable to be run safely between the home and the parked vehicle. The cable is inserted into the channel when you want to charge the vehicle, and it's removed after the vehicle's charged. Having one of these channels installed eliminates trailing cables and avoids trip hazards. It also means that residents are able to access cheaper home charging tariffs through domestic electricity tariffs. As Richard said, Somerset Council doesn't currently have a policy or doesn't allow cross-pavement channels. And the reason for this is that there isn't a policy or an approved process, which means that residents can't install a cross-pavement channel, which means they can't run a cable across the pavement safely. As more and more people are getting electric vehicles now, we're getting an increased number of inquiries from residents asking about cross-pavement channels, and we're not able to help them because there isn't a policy or a process in place. Our website currently advises that trailing cables across the pavement is not permitted, and that under the Highways Act of 1980, it's an offence to place wires, cables or other apparatus across the highway that may endanger the public. It also says that a resident might be personally liable for trip hazards if somebody's injured. So the good news is that we have secured just under £221,000 worth of capital funding from the government as part of their electric vehicle pavement channel grant, quite hard to say, which is part of a £25 million national programme. It supports councils to explore cross-pavement solutions, and the funding is for the installation costs only and must be used in line with the grant conditions. The officer time required for setting up a pilot will be funded separately. That comes via the Levi Capability Fund. So with both of these grants available, there's no immediate impact on the medium-term financial plan. So this fund allows us to implement a controlled pilot. It also allows us to test the safety, the risks and costs without committing to roll out. And the national guidance that's available supports councils to explore the options rather than adopt them. Introducing permanent infrastructure into the highways does carry risk. The risk itself isn't the technology, but it's how the pavement channels are delivered and managed in practice. The key risks are liability, accessibility, maintenance requirements, long-term management and responsibility, and also the resource burden. This is about managing risk in a structured and controlled way. So therefore, we have risk assessed the 3 different delivery models, and they are a local authority installation and ownership scheme, a resident-led installation under a licence, or a supplier-led installation and ongoing maintenance. And we note that the risk differs significantly depending on which model is chosen. As part of the report, Appendix B shows you the risk assessment that we carried out. I'm not going to go through it in any detail, but what I want to do is just talk you through the approach that we took. So you can see in column A, we have the list of all of the risk areas that we've assessed, starting with liability and maintenance, technical standards and compliance, and so on. We've then given a risk description and we've weighted that risk. The risks are weighted between 1 and 5, 1 being low, 5 being high, and then we've given a rationale to that thinking. Then we've taken each of the delivery options and each of those risks and we've scored them individually. So as an example, the top one that we're looking at for a local authority installation, we said that under liability, we're scoring that a 3. The scoring ranges from 1 being low, 3 being medium, and 5 being high, and is represented by green, amber, and red. What we've then done is we've multiplied that by the weighting that we've applied to that particular risk, which then gives us a weighted score for each individual risk against the individual delivery options. We've carried that out for all of the risks listed, and that then gives us a total weighted score at the bottom for each of the delivery models. The local authority installation coming up as 91. The supplier-led coming up at 157, and the supplier-led coming up as 59. Just want to go back to right. So having carried out that risk assessment, we have concluded that the supplier-led delivery approach is the lowest risk option, and it's therefore our recommendation for the pilot. It's important to note that whatever delivery solution we went with, the council retains oversight as the Highways Authority and always will. Our approach to the pilot is for us to run a time-limited pilot for up to 3 years. This will give us enough time to test the channels thoroughly, and it also aligns with the new Consolidation Transport Fund. As we've just discussed, we recommend that being on a supplier-led delivery model, which will give us clear contractual and licence arrangements between Somerset Council, the supplier, and the resident. There would be a managed service agreement between Somerset Council and the supplier. There would be a resident user agreement between the supplier and the resident, and then there would be a Section 178 licence between the council and the resident. Ongoing maintenance would be managed through the supplier contract, and the capital costs associated to the installation will be covered via the grant funding up to £1,200 per installation. This will mean there'll be a limited number of installations of approximately 180 across the whole of Somerset. There'll be a site-specific assessment, and not all applications will be suitable, and there's no guarantee of approval. All applications will be subject to the assessment. Applications will be considered in phases to ensure fairness and control, and installations will be subject to safety, accessibility and site conditions. The cross-pavement channels will be delivered alongside Levi. It's not replacing it in any way. They will work together. And as we've already said, the council will always retain control and oversight as the Highways Authority. Ongoing monitoring and evaluation will therefore then inform any future decisions. And with this being a pilot, it can be stopped or paused at any time if necessary. At this stage, it's important for us to understand the principles of the pilot, but the finer details will come later on as we start pulling the pilot together in more detail. So the pilot's going to test safety and accessibility, assess installation and quality, monitor maintenance performance, evaluate supplier responsiveness, and will understand the operational impact. The pilot is to test whether this can be delivered safely. What the pilot won't do is it won't create a policy, it won't guarantee approval, and it won't guarantee access to on-street parking. And that point is really important. All existing parking restrictions and TROs will still apply. That won't change. It won't commit us to further rollout, and it doesn't include any other cross-pavement solutions. So it doesn't include gantries or arms or charging arms or cable covers or any infrastructure, any cables that are permanently in the pavement. Also, the pilot is for the pavement channel only. The actual charge point is the responsibility of the resident. So the purpose of this item is to seek committee's view on the proposed controlled pilot, and our recommendation to scrutiny is that we support the development of a pilot, that we test a supplier-led delivery model because we've identified that as being the lowest risk, and that we note that any future policy will be subject to further member consideration. And just the final point to say is that this is about whether a controlled pilot is the right next steps. It's not about a decision to implement. I have just said that's the last thing, but it's not. There's one more slide, sorry. So based on feedback today, our indicative timeline will be that we will finalise the pilot design and scope throughout the summer. We will then procure and appoint a supplier in the autumn. At the same time, we will develop our guidance and the approval criteria. And hopefully with the trial or pilot will start in early 2027. Throughout the pilot, we will monitor safety and performance and operational impacts. That will be an ongoing thing, and we will come back to scrutiny with an interim report and a final report once the trial has finished. And that's everything that I wanted to say.
Okay, thank you, Sue. Just a little bit of clarification. The last slide was very useful in that it's presumably the supplier that we choose will provide the charging kit for the individual to buy. So, and we're only this pilot. I'm getting a shake of the head. So yeah, okay. Because it occurs to me that cutting a notch in a pavement for 1,200 quid seems rather a lot of money. The other thing is that you said that the cables will be taken out, so they'll be laid in the trench or the channel. Presumably there'll be some sort of cover, but it's the responsibility of the charger to actually remove it and replace the cover afterwards. Yeah, I can see that this is going to be a little bit. So I'm sorry to jump in before committee members, but I when I read the report, I hadn't fully grasped how that was going to work, because as well as the inevitable problems about, well, that's my parking space outside my house, this just adds an extra layer of complexity. Sorry, so if you'll just sort of expand on my concerns or misunderstanding, I'd be grateful. Then we'll move on to Henry, Andy, Dingwall and Fran I have at the moment, and then Deb.
Yes, no problem. So the charge point itself is the responsibility of the homeowner. It's nothing to do with the cross pavement channel at all. So they're responsible for finding that, installing it and paying for it. The channel itself, you're right, it's a groove in the pavement, but there's actually a channel that slots into that groove that you've created, and it's got a lid on it, so it opens and it closes. If you look at the slide that I'm sharing at the moment, the picture at the bottom, I know the picture's fairly small, but that shows you the channel that's been inserted into the pavement. So the responsibility is for the resident to insert the cable every time they want to charge their vehicle, and it will be written into the section 178 license that that's what they have to do.
Is the lid lockable?
It's not lockable, no.
Sorry, committee members for jumping in there. Henry, you wanted to go first.
Thank you for this report. As Richard will tell you, I've been hammering this subject for about 6 months. Why haven't you considered the overhead gantry system?
Under the funding that we've been given, the gantries aren't included. So the only cross pavement solution that we can offer using the funding are cross pavement channels. We can't use anything else.
That answers that question. it's all very useful if you actually live in a position where you've got parking outside your house. One of the things I was looking at 8 years ago was covering car parks in solar panels and batteries in one of the parking spaces, so that the people who do not have access to a road can still get reasonably priced charging, because charging in a public place connection is somewhere between 70 and £1 per kilowatt. And if you do it without pulling your electricity down, you're at 25 to 30p. And if you pull your electricity down at night, or you've got solar panels, it's either 0 or 8. And we need to be considering, after this trial, a way of dealing with the car park problem, because most of the cars in my bigger town, Castle Carey, are parked in a car park. No comment?
Okay.
Sorry, I just thought that was a statement.
Okay.
Yeah, I think as Sue has articulated, I mean, the pilot is the pilot and
No,
it's
no, I get
constrained
it.
by the government
That's
funding.
why
So, but if it proves to be unsuccessful or opens up other alternatives, then I'm sure they will be explored.
In the small villages, it will work like a dream, because they have direct access onto the pavements.
Andy Dingwall, please.
Thank you, Chair. Really like this. I think it's a really good step. I've been driving an EV for 10 years, and at the point that I bought it, it was a very early question in the sales chat: do you have a driveway? And it felt like it would be a restrictive thing if I didn't. So I think this is gonna help move us in that kind of direction. With that said, and the positive kind of vibes generally, I'm going to be supportive of it. I've got a few questions here. I know in the risk register, or the risk assessment there, you've talked about on-street parking. No one has a specific right to park in front of their property. The risk cannot be mitigated in the report. It is likely that members of the public who have signed up to this pilot will hold the council in some level responsible for their ability to access that. Do we, or will we have a standard boilerplate kind of response that is strong and kind of asserting the fact that that's not the case? Following on from that, is there broader work at a government level to address that? Generally, on-street parking is tense as it is. That's a tactful way to put it. As tense as it is, might this spur on some broader government work if that's something you know about? The next question I've got is actually perfectly illustrated in your top picture, where you can see the pavement had been dug up to insert presumably a water pipe or fibre cable or something like that. Is there a guarantee that when we've inserted a channel into a pavement, that any maintenance will maintain that channel and not just be tarmacked across, in the repair work? You've cleared up one of the questions, part one of the question about the installation cost, not including the EV charger. My instinct is that would limit the number of people who would feel this pilot is appropriate to them, because the number of people who have on-street parking and have a charger is quite small by definition, is why we're doing the pilot. So how are we picking people, I suppose? And is that process going to be targeted at existing EV owners who are currently, using public charging or workplace charging, or might this work alongside dealers at the moment? Is that a way we would source? And linked to all of that, is it our responsibility to find residents as the council to take part in this pilot, or as a supplier-led programme, are we off pushing that on as well? And that's it. That's my questions. Sorry, that was a lot. Sorry.
Yeah, it was. Okay, so I'm just going to work my way through those. So in terms of finding people to take part in the trial, I think they will find us. We are going to launch this. We're going to tell people about it. It will be on our web pages once we know who our supplier is. but we've already got a number of people that are contacting us. So if you live in a property like this and you are thinking about getting an electric vehicle, you are looking for how you can charge your vehicle. So people will come to us, but we will help that by letting people know that we've now got a solution. The question around the government, I'm not sure I can answer that. I don't know. The parking situation. So yes, we've acknowledged that existing parking restrictions will apply. That will be known to the residents through the Section 178 licence that they sign. So they will have to make an application. They won't know that their location is suitable or no. So the application will involve doing a site assessment, and it will go through a criteria to decide whether it's a yes or a no. The supplier will do that. They will then go back to the resident and they will say, it appears that it's all okay. These are the options that you have. And when I say the options that you have, it would be you could have it going down the right-hand side of your path, or it could go down the left-hand side of your path. They then decide which one they want. That then goes back to the supplier. The supplier will then come to us and say, we've got this case that we think we would like to approve. What do you think? We will then do our own assessment as to whether it's right or no. We will then either say that it's a yes or a no. If we're saying that it's a yes, we will issue the 178 licence. That then goes to the resident. They need to read it and they sign a declaration to say that they have read it and they have understood it. They will also pay a one-off fee for that licence as well. So the resident will be fully informed and they will know what they're getting into. We have spoken to other local authorities that have got trials set up already, and sometimes the concern of stuff happening and the problems that might happen, once you've actually got the trial set up and running, those things don't actually happen. And residents, in some cases, they will sort things out between themselves. So that we have spoken to authorities whereby they're aware of WhatsApp groups where people in the same street will talk to each other and they'll just figure it out between themselves. And then in terms of the maintenance, yeah, you're right. There will be cross pavement channels along pavements where there will be maintenance works that will be required. And we will need to decide what locations we approve. It won't be every single property that will be allowed to have one, because that would be way too many cross pavement channels within one street. And that will then enhance that issue that you've just spoken about in terms of needing to carry out other works in the street. So we need to have a criteria that identifies what we're going to say yes to and what we're going to say no to. We have spoken to suppliers who have told us that depending on the nature of the works that are required, they can simply come along and remove the channel so that the works can happen, or the contractor can dig under the channel. I think that the true answer to the question is that it isn't actually written out properly at the moment, but there are ways around it and it will be sorted out in the contract.
I'll just add a little bit to that. There's an additional complexity, and I think you're absolutely right to raise the issue, because maintenance is both about the maintenance of the installation, the cross pavement channel, but it's also about the maintenance of the footway itself. And of course, there are a number of statutory undertakers that have an ability to be able to work within the highway, and we have an ability to be able to have a degree of control around that, an inspection regime around that. The installation of cross pavement channels does provide the Highway Authority with significant challenges in relation to the maintenance of our own footway assets. So in proposing the approach that we've done, it recognises that this is minimises that risk as much as possible, but it does provide some additional complexity for us because these installations will be in place. So it's not just a question of plane and resurface. We will have to take into account these installations once they're in place for any maintenance regime the authority is applying. So it does create some challenges.
Sorry, Andy, did you have another point you want to raise?
A follow on to that particular point, if that's okay. It feels then the image that you brought up about the aerial view of part of Taunton, that's it. So we've got 50 or so houses all in a row with pavement in front of them. outside of the pilot were, and let's say all of the current government policy comes to pass and it's 2040 and everybody has an EV, it would essentially be a lottery on whether or not I, as a householder, get the channel or my neighbour gets the channel. That feels like a significant issue. In the pilot may be successful as a pilot, but as a rollout across a much broader population, it feels indeed that it's driving higher inequity. It becomes a real lottery, and at the same time significantly increases the cost and complexity. So it potentially fails on both parts. As a full rollout, it becomes much more expensive to manage the footways, and we don't get the improvement to all of our residents that we're looking for. Is that a fair reading?
Yes, I think it is. But with anything to do with electric vehicle charging infrastructure, it is evolving all the time. So in 2040, the scenario you just gave, we're not going to know how we're going to be charging vehicles by then. Things will have changed and moved on. And also with this pilot being for 3 years, that there will be all sorts of issues that we come across. And in terms of rolling it out, it's after the 3 years we can then, that will have informed decision making, and we can decide what works and what doesn't work. We're not going to be able to install a channel for every single property in streets like the streets on the screen at the moment. So we're going to need to decide how we're going to make that work in relation to the Levi programme as well. So the Levi programme is for publicly accessible charge points, and it might be that in a street that we put a charge point at the end of that street, so that at least there's something in that street for somebody to use.
I completely accept that, and as a pilot, I still support the idea of a pilot, but it does feel that a pilot succeeds or fails, and then the policy will come forward to roll out, and it sets us up for a failure of policy later on down the line, within that kind of 3-year period. So that's just worth thinking through, I think. Yeah.
Do you mind if I just add something else into that? Is that we've got the new transport fund. I can't remember exactly what it's called, which is over a period of 3 years, and cross pavement channels forms part of that. So we are needing to report against that on a regular basis. So there will be information going to the Department of Transport, and I'm assuming they're going to be looking at that and gathering information, and they will be making decisions themselves then about what happens going forward, and changing perhaps direction, and offering other things to the council as well. So I don't think it's just a case of doing a trial and it's not going to work. It will evolve and it will develop, and because it's a trial, it just informs any future decision making that we do.
Okay, thank you. Right, it's now 22. I'd like to be able to finish by 1 o'clock. I've got 5 people waiting to speak, so I would urge you all to be succinct in your questioning, and we'll see how we go. But I've got Fran Smith, Dave Mansell, Andy Kendall, Steve Ashton, and Nick O'Donnell at the moment. So Fran, kick off, please.
Thank you. You have covered quite a few of the questions I was going to ask, especially from Andy's point of view. I am supportive of this trial coming forward, but I do have quite a few concerns. So I wondered how many providers there are throughout the country, and what experience have they got throughout the country. And I know you've been in contact, because you said you've now been in contact, so that will probably alleviate my concerns there. Will we use just one provider, or will we have a couple in different parts of Somerset? Then I was concerned then, if you did, do they have standardized connections? Because that is something else for the future. If you have this installed and then you want to continue with it, should it happen? The sturdiness of the covers, I'm just concerned, there's a lot of responsibility putting these covers back on, and if you buckle in it and someone trips over it, whose responsibility is that? Because it didn't look particularly good from what I could see here, but that's just a concern. And if an electric car should unfortunately catch fire while it's on the road there, and yes, they do catch fire, because My son-in-law had one just down the road from where he lived and it nearly caught the house on fire. And that's different, that's on their property. But if it's on the road, whose responsibility is that? Is it the connection, etc.? The council, whatever. So if you could just answer a few of those questions, thank you.
The number of suppliers is either 4 or 5. I know that one particular supplier has recently purchased another one, so it's around 4 or 5. Throughout the trial, we would intend it to just use one supplier. We want to keep it as simple as possible. In terms of standardised connections, there isn't any connection as such in terms of the pavement channel. It's just the channel in the pavement. So it depends on what you mean by your connection. The only connection I can think of is the actual from the charge point itself. But we're just talking about the pavement channel. And then responsibility for the channel, it's a mixed responsibility. The resident has to use it correctly. They have to make sure that they only use it when they're charging the vehicle and then remove the cable once they've stopped charging the vehicle. They have to make sure that it doesn't fill up with debris. So they have to keep it clean and tidy. In terms of actual maintenance, if something goes wrong with that pavement channel, it's the responsibility of the supplier. So the resident would inform the supplier and the supplier would then come and fix the problem. And then in terms of the fire, I'd need to come back to you with the response on that.
Can I just add to that? One of the requirements of the Section 178 licence is that the householder provides evidence of insurance. That world is evolving in a sense, but it's a very specific insurance about using cross pavement channels has to be evidenced so that there is a specific insurance for that. And that is a absolute requirement that we will put in place before we would ever allow the 178 licence to be approved.
So that'd be an interesting conversation with your broker, wouldn't it? Mike, did you want to say something?
Yeah, just to clarify responsibilities. So that the householder will be responsible for the electrical connection and the how that's certificated and put in. They're responsible for their own vehicle on the road. We're in no way responsible for any vehicles that are on the road, and what happens to them. We're literally responsible for the road infrastructure, and the licensing covers the channel. So yeah, if there's an electrical fire or something, it's not the highways authority's responsibility.
Do you mind if I just add to that as well, is that when the resident has the charge point fitted at the property, it has to be fitted by a proper electrical contractor. The electrical contractor will then issue the electrical certificate, and the cross pavement channel supplier will request a copy of that from them, so it will be held on file as well.
Yeah, I think this whole point of liability and insurance is incredibly important. So, I mean, I think for me to be comfortable with this, I'd like to have some sort of assurance that there are bespoke policies available that will cover all the eventualities that are affordable. That's the other thing, of course, because we know insurance can run away with you. Anyway, Dave.
Yeah, thank you. I welcome the report. I do feel, I have to say, I'm sort of frustrated at the time it's taking, and I think it just has to be noted that jointly then, as all the councils, there was a charging strategy adopted in 2020 in Somerset, and I think it was recommendation 11 did say that guidance on this would be provided by the end of 2021, and look where we are now. But we are where we are now, and we have to sort out where we go. But you know, it does feel like lost years up till now. Now, in sort of terms of the approach, supplier led, etc. I'm okay with where we're going on this with a supplier led. That it makes sense, and it's a pilot. We're going to learn as we go through. I feel that we may just work out as the pilot develops exactly what the balance is between what the local authority is best responsible for and what suppliers, and so you know, I'm content to sort of see that work out. I do wonder that the more local authority involvement there is, and where risks are really low and such, like, probably the lower the costs are. So I don't wish us to pass too much off to supplier, but I'm okay for us to work out the detail of that later on. And of course, there's always the concern about supplier failure and everyone then being left in the lurch and with a big risk, which is another reason for the local authority still having some involvement in this. But this is a starting point for us, and clearly suppliers have got products they can offer and help us to move forward with this, and we see what they offer. Planning permission is mentioned on page 74 in terms of it may be needed. Can I just draw attention? And my feeling is we should avoid that. It's another cost, it's another barrier, it's another difficulty. And from what I can see, it can be avoided. I'm not claiming to be an expert on this, but looking what's happening elsewhere, I particularly noticed in West Berkshire, they've got a system whereby they're saying, as long as you meet these criteria, we're not going to require planning permission. So as long as you're doing things in the right way, essentially, but if you're not, we might, and that struck me as quite a good approach. So I hope we can look at that and maybe also others as good ways forward. Okay, so I think possibly though my sort of biggest, well, it is a concern and biggest feeling on this is just the time it's taken, and the idea that it's 3 years, and whether we really need 3 years, and I'm hoping we don't. And in particular, I say that is because others have been doing it already. How many local authorities there are in the country, 300 or whatever it is. Everyone does not have to do a pilot and prove it. We need to learn from each other. And because at one time we looked like being an early starter, an early adopter, but we're now looking like a little bit later in the process, we've got others to learn from, and I have looked a little bit, who else is doing what. Oxfordshire have been active in this for quite some period, since early 2020s. So they're rolling out. West Berkshire, I've mentioned that they've been offering it to their residents for quite some period now. I don't know exactly how long, but it's certainly more than a year, and I expect longer than that. It's not cheap, but they've had their offer, they've gone for it, they put the solicitor in place, they're already going for it. They go with a supplier called Turbocharge, who now say they're actually working with 35 local authorities, got another 13 trials underway. This includes Cornwall, Plymouth, Devon, and more. So there's lots of this going on out there. We don't have to learn it all ourselves, especially as others have been doing this for longer than us. So I really would urge that we look to learn from them and get to an offer as soon as we can. I'm not seeking to put a timetable on it, but 3 years sounds. It feels longer than I feel is maybe needed. And just finally, sort of returning to the point Henry made earlier on, cost in this is really quite key. And that's one of the reasons we're looking at cross pavement. It is a way some people are going to, the only way they are going to be able to charge their car. But cost is factor, and Henry covered that well. It's a really significant difference if you can plug in at home, whereas if you're going to plug in to something else outside. And I just wish, I feel cross pavements will be part of the solution. So they will be. They're not perfect. There's some issues, but I feel they can be overcome, and they will be part of it. they have their own costs. But I think we need to keep looking at this really strongly, how we enable people to charge at a reasonable cost. And at the moment, that means connecting to your home electricity supply, not least because you pay extra VAT on anything elsewhere. And I hope we will keep trying to push against that and find ways of bringing the costs down, including what we're doing through the Levi Fund, and perhaps putting pressure on the government to equalise the VAT, which I think really means charging outside those who can't do it at home, paying the same VAT as you pay at home. That'd be one big step. But yeah, time taken, and yeah, and I guess costs.
Okay, Dave. Well, I mean, the recommendation talks about up to 3 years. So there's no, it's not a hard and fast 3 years. It will be whatever it is. Did you want to respond to that, or shall we move on? Richard?
Yeah, I think we accept everything you say, but I'd just like to remind you that it was in the previous iteration of this committee that the committee members pushed us to doing the trial as it was felt that just learning off other councils wouldn't be sufficient for us. So that is why we pushed to get the finance in place.
We just get going now. It's that the fact that there wasn't a plan to move forward. That's what we were pushing for. Is get going with it.
I think we are where we need to be now. So I mean, we're moving forward with it, which is good. Andy Kendall, please.
Thank you, Chair. Little story, first of all, 20 seconds. I stayed in London on the Queen's Jubilee. I don't know how long ago that was. And I stayed in a square, another flat or something. Anyway, but on every car, there was a post on the road. When the electric cars come, anyway, that's the story I've been done with. In my division, I've been sat here thinking, that's got to drive, that hasn't. I'm glad you left that picture up. I'd love to have roads like that in my division. We don't, it is, you mentioned something about people come from elsewhere. We have a big hospital. All the workers either pay to go to the hospital car park or they find a street like that and park in it. So there's one problem I've got. The other problem is some people have to park 2-3 streets away because of the amount of cars on the road. Another problem I've got now is because they're buying big ones, we're using the pavements to park on. I'm not saying you've got to start somewhere, but I'm just starting to think of my division. It's either all got driveways of all, well, similar. But I don't know. I don't think you'll be coming together with doing this, but I do think it's like everyone's saying, it's a good start. And that's for better late than never was a question of my 11+. But thank you, Chair.
Thanks. Steve Ashton, please.
Yeah, just an observation, no question. Obviously, you need to remind these people they can't reserve their parking spaces in front of their houses with cones because that's obstruction. And secondly, looking into my crystal ball, I can see the local OICs having a new game of kicking off the flaps that are out of the cars. And if someone's going to buy a car and they plan on having street parking, to advise them to buy a car with the plug in the front, because even though you show it going down the side and being the McKenna's plug is about that long and it'll be sticking out the side of the car, and either they'll be sticking it out into the road or they're sticking it out into obstructing the pavement. So just a little bit of wording saying, if you're thinking about this, consider a car with a plug in the front rather than the plug-ins in the sides.
Okay, thank you, Steve. And Nick O'Donnell, once again, squeezing in under the line.
Yes, I was didn't get my hand up quick enough. So yeah, thank you. So, I mean, I'm very much in favour. I'm struggling to see how it will work. I mean, looking at that street, it's. I mean, I suppose the question is, how long can the cable be? Because some houses have bigger front lawns. Not all pavements are the same width. And then, of course, not only can you not guarantee to park inside your facade house, but from the previous picture, you've almost got to have your charging point in line with the cross channel, which you'll never be able to judge. Because I can see you putting these going in, and there isn't hardly ever being able to use them. So my question is, how long can the cable be, and can it run along the curb?
So the channel itself can be up to 3 meters, and the section 178 license will give the resident information about how to use the channel. And what we're saying is that they have to park the vehicle outside the property. They can't park it two or three spaces down the road and get a really long cable. They're not allowed to do that, and the section 178 license will tell them that.
Okay. Yes, because I can just see that they'll probably just leave it and then just trail it down the curb a little bit, but they're not allowed to do that.
No.
They wouldn't. All right. So that would be restricted. The other question I was going to have is about how you're selecting people. I think Andy Dingle raised it. I think it's. I'm just concerned about the officer time it will take you to go through all the applications, and I'm wondering whether perhaps something on the website, a really good set of questions. Number one, do you own an electric vehicle? Number two, what's the minimum distance? 3, just design a whole set of questions which residents have to answer, and then hopefully that will deselect an awful lot straight away, just to save officer time having to go through lots and lots of applications.
Yeah, also in addition to that is that our website will direct them to the supplier, so that initial contact won't be with us, but you're absolutely right. We want to give as much information as possible so that people can make an informed choice.
Just to say the other thing on the back of that, we will need to develop an advice note, a technical advice note, because there'll be technical matters we've got to be able to deal with. If the recommendation is accepted and we move forward with the trial, as Sue said, that's a piece of work that needs to be done over the course of this autumn, ready for the trial to be rolled out. From that, we'll be able to give absolute clarity in terms of the FAQs and have that kind of decision-making flow.
Okay, thank you. I've got no other questions, so I'll sum up. I mean, I think this is a really interesting initiative, and I think it is necessary. I have to say I'm rather sceptical, so I'm happy to be reassured that where elsewhere where it's worked, people have actually worked together. But I think your risk assessment sets out quite a lot of the potential issues here, and the one for me is, will I always park outside my house? That sort of thing. So we do need a trial. I take on board Councillor Mansell's points that others are doing this at the same time. So we need to have that in the mix as well. And obviously, as soon as we can come up with a settled position that says, right, this is what we're going to do, then the better it will be for everybody. So, committee members, we have 3 recommendations in front of you. I don't know whether you want me to read them, but I suppose I will, just for form's sake. One, that the committee supports the development of a control pilot programme for a time-limited period of up to 3 years using the Electric Vehicle Pavement Channels Grant in order to test a supplier-led delivery approach identified as the lowest risk option for a cross-pavement channel. Secondly, that the committee notes that the pilot will be used to assess the safety, accessibility, liability, maintenance and operational viability of cross-pavement channels and to gather local evidence to inform any future policy proposals. That I hope does include discussions about householder insurance. That needs to be in there. And thirdly, that the committee supports the development of clear guidance for residents and notes that any future policy or approval process will be developed following completion of the pilot, informed by its outcomes and subject to further member consideration. I think from the timeline, you were hoping to start this sometime next spring, early next spring. I think what I'd like to do is whoever is chairing the committee at that time, whether it's after the elections or not, I think it would be useful that this committee is kept informed of timelines and developments on a regular basis, because this is important, as has been said. The ability to charge your car conveniently and at a cost-effective rate is integral to the uptake, and we need to make sure that we're on top of all this. Anyway, I've read the recommendations. Can I have a proposer, please? Candidate Dingwall, seconded by Councillor Henry Hobhouse. All those in favour? And that is unanimous. Thank you very much. Right, agenda item 8, you'll be pleased to hear, is the Climate, Environment and Place Scrutiny Forward Plan, as if we haven't talked about that enough. So what I'm going to say is that, as I mentioned earlier on, I want to sift through everything that came forward that we discussed this morning, try and get my head around it, put into some sort of coherent order, then have a discussion with Democratic Services over, how we can schedule all this. I will then share it with the committee before the next meeting and invite your comments on that, so that we are all sort of cited before we meet again on the 9th of July. If you're content with that approach, I will do that. And yes, good. I will therefore declare the meeting closed. Oh, damn. I'm going to lose my sweepstake. I said 2 minutes past one.
Not 10 seconds. Don't forget an update from them sooner rather than later. When you're.
Oh, yes.
We are on the forward plan to come back to you with a Levi update at the end of the year, and we can just put a couple of paragraphs at least into that report to give you an update on where we're at with this process.
All right, everybody, thank you very much for your time and consideration. Safe journey home, and we'll see you all in about a month's time.